Podmortem would like to thank Original Cinematic for sponsoring this week's episode. Original Cinematic is an independent production company that has made it their mission to create, produce, and promote films that are inclusive, honor women, promote the LGBTQIA+ community, and provide prominent positions and roles to POC actors and filmmakers, and promote the films of marginalized and underrepresented populations. These are all things that are extremely important to our podcast as well.
Original Cinematic is currently accepting scripts and treatments. Both William and Xxena Rush are also available via email or Zoom to discuss writing and provide input and resources to all aspiring writers, free of charge. Their information will be made available in the show notes. There may be delays due to a hectic schedule and all projects being read on a first-come, first-served basis, but everything will be read and responded to. William Rush has individually produced numerous projects, including Pack is Here, Before, The Cottage, The Winemaker, and Day by Day. Their multi-award-winning film Group premiered and was celebrated at multiple film festivals as well as screenings, both in person and via Zoom, that were graciously made available to us and our patrons.
Original Cinematic has many exciting projects on the horizon. Their next film, Immersion, has been completed. The award-winning Sweetener is in development. Fetish begins shooting in September, and Encore will begin next spring. Their documentary, Women in Conversation, is slated for a September release, and we're looking forward to each and every one of them. It is truly an honor to partner with Original Cinematic, and we can't thank them enough for their contribution to our show. And now, back to our regularly scheduled program. Salutations! Welcome to Podmortem. I'm Reneé Hunter-Vasquez, joined as always by my co-host, my husband, and my brother.
Hi, I'm John Paul Vasquez.
Hi, I'm Travis Hunter-Sayapin.
This week, we're recording live from Bear Mountain Road, discussing the 2003 slasher, Wrong Turn. This film was directed by Rob Schmidt and written by Alan B. McElroy. Wrong Turn was set up for success with the hot early 2000s cast, a premise grounded in realism, and producer and SFX legend Stan Winston helming exciting effects, but its critical reception was lukewarm. Despite these less than favorable reviews, this film's right turn at the box office led to the spawning of a franchise, and 20 years later, Wrong Turn remains a guilty pleasure for many horror fans. This film was requested to us by friends of the show, Beth Myers, Martin Shaw, and Cassandra. We want to thank them all for their support as well as this suggestion. This film was also the winner of our November Patreon poll, so thank you to all of our patrons who participated and voted. If you want to help us pick an episode, join us on our Patreon at patreon.com/thepodmortem. So, what did you guys think of Wrong Turn the first time you saw it?
I think I was 19 or 20. I was 19 when the movie came out, but I can't remember if I seen it in the theater, but I know I definitely watched it on DVD.
Mm-hmm.
I remember liking it. I remember I was like, oh yeah, that's great, whatever. And then bringing it up to do it for the show, it was a little different than I remembered. I don't want to say a special place, but it does remind me of when I did watch it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I am like, oh yeah, I do remember. Oh, I remember that. But there was a lot of stuff that I didn't remember either because I hadn't seen it since then.
Mm-hmm.
That was 20 years ago. You know what I mean? I couldn't have told you how this movie ended. I couldn't have told you how it started. Anything. There was bits and pieces that I remember. Other than that, this was, I don't want to say a fresh watch, but there, you know what I mean? Most of it was. But with that being said, watching it for the show really showed me that I watched it wrong, I guess. And hey, I remember watching it and I was like, yeah. And I even remember when we were going to cover it, I was like, oh, I remember really liking that movie. And then watching it and, reviewing it and whatever. And I was like, oh no, I don't think I do now. It's really weird. What I know we're going to get into it, but I think for me, there's not enough for me to care about our group or our characters or whatever we're going to get into. It's very hard to take, because these movies, there's a lot of them.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? As far as like these early 2000s styles movies. And I like to try to defend them. I even had a conversation with your sister, and I was like, oh, they can't all be bad. But then I do want to apologize. I think you may be right. Maybe this one was one of the examples. And I'll still fight and be like, I'm sure they're not all bad. But
They're not.
But this one was like a little sand in the face. And I was like, oh, I was defending you. Why'd you do that?
No, I think this one definitely would benefit from the power of nostalgia.
Oh, yeah.
I do not have that going into this. This is actually the first time I've ever seen Wrong Turn.
Okay.
And so it was a brand new film for me. All I've heard is just the reputation that it has. The fact that there are 5 sequels after this one and a reboot. I will say I've gone on record many, many times to say that early 2000s horror is chock full of gems. If you look for them, they are there, but it is by and large, I don't even have to think about it. If you ask me, it's my least favorite era of horror.
Yeah.
And I feel like Wrong Turn kind of exemplifies all the things that I really don't like about this era of horror.
Okay.
And I think that it's very important to note that every film is a miracle.
Let's start there.
A lot of people work really hard.
Yeah.
A lot of people come together and have, a vision and an idea and a very talented cast and crew and everything. But I have to be honest, there is nothing for me in this film.
Okay.
At all. I was thinking about it as I was trying to formulate my thoughts for this opening section, and I was like, well, are there characters I like? No. Is it visually interesting? No. Is the music remarkable or worth any, comment? Really? Not for me.
Yeah.
I think the thing that bothers me is that whenever you have a film like this where the characters are so whatever, you can often say, well, at least the villain's fucking cool.
Yeah.
And at least the villain, I can root for the villain, to take care of the problem.
Yeah.
The villains aren't even worth mentioning to me.
Yeah, not so much.
And I feel like things that I see as like little nods to other films, the other films that they're referencing just did every aspect of it way better, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So I'd much rather go watch The Hills Have Eyes.
Right.
I'd much rather go watch The Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yeah.
I think that there is one sequence that I like. There's one death that is visually interesting and very cool, especially for the time. I do like the cast.
Yeah.
I like the people that are here. I just don't like the characters they're playing.
Right.
I think that it's just not inventive enough. It's not ridiculous enough to be fun.
Yeah.
I do think the fact that it was followed by 5 sequels and a reboot, it is very inspiring. And so if you ever have an idea, go for it, because you never know.
You can do it.
Yeah, everyone can do it. Please do. Put your idea out there and what can happen.
Yeah.
Who knows what can happen. And I will say I don't hate this film because I think you would have to care more about it to hate it.
So how do you really feel about it?
Don't care for
Okay,
it.
got it.
But I love the fact that so many people love it.
Yeah.
There are going to be tons of films that are just not for me that are for everyone.
Definitely.
And films that are not for everyone that are absolutely for me.
Yeah. And I mean, there's 5 of them. So I mean,
Maybe.
Yeah.
I mean,
they might,
yeah. Maybe they get better. No.
We'll see eventually.
Yeah, well.
No, I was pretty excited when this one won the poll because I was sure that I had seen it before, but that I didn't remember it. And then watching it for the show, I have not seen this before. And I knew when Jeremy Sisto popped up, 14-year-old me, I was like, I would have watched the shit out of this just for him. And if I wasn't watching like that, I never saw this. And I did not know that he was in this. So this was a fresh watch for me. And I think that maybe that vibes that I was attributing to this, I think I'm just remembering watching The Hills Have Eyes remake as a teenager. Because the premise of this really is for me. This is the kind of shit that scares me. in Texas, going anywhere, it's long stretches of road. There's nothing out there. Just the thought and the idea of who could be out here, what types of people, what they're getting up to, what they're doing, that is frightening on a very real level for me. So I do enjoy, films like this are effective for me because they do scare me. And this one, I don't know, like on paper, it is for me. Like this should have done it for me and it just didn't.
Yeah.
I think that the aspects of the premise that do scare me, I feel like we didn't really explore them. And so it ends up feeling like this kind of like paint by numbers. Well, now this has got to happen. And now this person's going to get taken out this way. That one kill that you're alluding to, that is fucking cool.
Yeah.
I will give it that. The makeup on the baddies, I like it. You know, I there's just something missing. And I'm hoping that us talking about it, maybe I can put my finger on it better than I like this shit and you didn't really do it justice or you didn't really explore it fully. You know what I mean? To my satisfaction. Because like you said, we can go to Hills Have Eyes. We can go to even the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And that's the kind of shit that I think I was expecting. And I think they made me expect it. Like, let's not, I wasn't like trying to make this something that it isn't. You know what I mean? I don't know. I feel like this, I can definitely see it being a guilty pleasure. I feel like if I had watched this at 14 when it was new, I would probably love it if I'm being honest. But unfortunately, I didn't. And so watching it now, it just fell a little flat for me. And I'm not gonna lie, there are like laugh out loud moments in this for me. And again, that is me getting enjoyment out of it. So like you said, I don't hate it.
Yeah.
It's not like I'm never gonna watch that again, you know, It's not American Werewolf in Paris, you know?
No.
But
what is?
That. Yeah. But it did fall a little bit flat for me in terms, like I think you both kind of touched on with character development, with even the trajectory of the story. It just feels like we're doing a lot of the same thing for the whole movie.
Yeah, it's repetitive, and it's 77 minutes before credits.
It's so short.
It's wild.
It's so short, but it still feels like it drags in some areas.
I think what you said, it kind of hit me, the paint by numbers. It does feel, because there are moments in this movie that was kind of a major thing for me, is like we're just waiting for the next thing to happen, or we need to stand in this spot in order for the next thing to happen, and we have to show that for some reason. And I don't understand why.
It's very tropey.
Yeah.
And I think that's another thing that just, you know, when they did a similar thing in the original Hills Have Eyes, that's 1977.
Yeah.
And it's, 2003 for this?
Yeah.
And you don't have anything new to say. You don't have anything new to do with it.
Yeah.
And you're just doing, you know, I don't mean to be so negative. I was just really disappointed because I wanted to like it.
Right.
Yeah.
Because I'm of the same mind as you are, where it's like, this is legitimately frightening territory.
Yeah.
Let's do something.
I want to be scared, you know? But like you said, every film is a miracle. And I do want to talk a little bit about the production of Wrong Turn and, you know, how it came to be.
Okay.
So like most films, this one starts with some paths crossing. So let's start with the screenwriter. As I said, Alan B. McElroy. We have talked about him before. He got his first big break with his screenplay for Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers.
Which is great.
Yeah. So...
for the most part.
Right.
We love the ending.
We could talk, you can listen to us talk a lot about that one. But he would then write the screenplay for Spawn in 97.
Really?
Yeah. But again, this is him coming into the Halloween franchise. This is him adapting the graphic novels of Spawn. So he wanted to do something original, just completely his own. He said that he and his wife were taking a trip to Jamaica, and they were going to the airport super early in the morning when it was still dark outside during a snowstorm. So they hit a traffic jam. Somebody came to their car and said that it could be a 14-hour wait.
Jesus.
For whatever the hell is going on in this road. They said that even the truckers in front of them had gone to the back of their cabs to go to sleep. Like, we're not moving.
Oh, wow.
But they're on their way to the airport. Like, the plane's not going to wait for them. So they consulted a map and found a road to bypass this traffic jam. So they take it. And he said as they're driving, he and his wife are like, is this a good idea? Like, we have no idea where the hell we are. Anything could happen out here. Anything could go wrong. And so that's what inspired him for the premise of Wrong Turn.
Okay.
So he writes a screenplay about a banker whose car breaks down and there are mountain men in a nearby cabin who ambush him. He has a meeting with an executive at Original Film and he gets 2 pieces of advice on this screenplay that he's written about this banker.
Mm-hmm.
Advice number 1, add 4 or 5 people to kill off. Piece of advice number 2, give it a catchy title, something like Wrong Turn.
So
Yeah.
He said that he was told you'll sell it overnight. Make those changes and you'll sell it overnight. So he takes his advice to heart. He goes back home and he writes Wrong Turn in 3 weeks. He brings it back to Original Film and they pass.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So
They're like, oh, not us.
Yeah. I didn't say we would buy it. So it was Summit Entertainment and New Market Group who would pick it up. And they bring in Stan Winston, who loved the screenplay. He comes in as producer. So later, Constantine Film would join in. So they have 3 production companies. And from what I read, they provided much of the budget.
Oh, wow.
Oh, okay.
So meanwhile, let's cut to Rob Schmidt, who was desperate to make a horror film. He said that he was in talks to direct an installment of the Hellraiser franchise.
Really?
Huh.
And his agent told him that if he ever made a Hellraiser movie, she would quit.
Well, where are we in the franchise at this point?
I don't know.
Yeah.
So maybe. So he passes on it, but he said that that's when his agent finally understood that he was very serious about getting into the genre. So she sends him a script that she receives for Wrong Turn. And he reads it and he's like, this is it. So obviously they make the movie. McElroy said that it was supposed to come out around Halloween, but they rushed it for the summer. And so it came out in May.
This is a summer movie,
It
though.
is.
Yeah.
It is.
Schmidt said that he was literally traumatized by the reviews that came out because people hated it so much. Like critically, they were not kind.
I'd like to apologize to Mr. Schmidt.
But it was still a financial success and a franchise was born. And McElroy said that his words paid him off. And despite receiving a character by credit, he would not return until the 2021 reboot. He did the screenplay for that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's kind of wild.
Yeah. The films in the interim were released straight to DVD.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. But despite reviews, there is something about this franchise that keeps people coming back for more. I mean, it won our Patreon poll.
It did.
Yeah.
So there's something to be said.
There's a lot to say.
Yeah.
Now, before we hunt this film, we would like to show a warning for spoilers. Podmortem is a very in-depth podcast, and in thoroughly discussing horror films, we have no choice but to spoil a thing or two. If you don't wish to be spoiled, please go watch the film, then come back and enjoy the show. If you've already seen the film or don't care about spoilers, then let's hit the road. The film begins with an aerial view of a forest. We glide over the lush green trees before finally lingering on a cliff face. Rich and Haley, played by Joel Harris and Yvonne Gaudry, ascend the cliff face with their climbing gear as we continue to watch from above. Rich makes it to the top and celebrates with some cheering as he looks out at the view. He chides Haley, calling her a slowpoke and insisting that she hurry up. But Haley is struggling, and when she loses her footing, she falls backward. Luckily, she's caught by her harness, but she still screams for help. Rich returns to the cliff's edge to make sure she's okay, and with her back safely on the wall, he reminds her that they're 50 miles away from anybody. Who is she screaming for? It's like, all right.
Oh, okay.
What the fuck?
You have to let the audience know.
Yeah. Well, that and then the response. That's how you respond to your climbing buddy or your partner or whoever.
Apparently.
Almost falling.
Help! Who are you fucking calling for?
You!
Like we're never doing this again.
No.
And Haley does tell him simply, you! But he just tells her again to come on before walking away. As he disappears out of sight, Haley asks for him to just pull her up. He gives no reply and doesn't return to the edge, so she asks him again, begging him not to be a dick and just help her.
I do want to say, just as far as like sounds are concerned, we absolutely heard Rich getting snatched and killed. It was very clear.
You do hear it.
Yeah, it echoes through the canyon or whatever this is.
Rich finally does return to the cliff's edge, but with a thud as he falls, his face obscured by the grass. Haley calls up to him as something hits her face. She wipes at it and finds it to be blood. Rich is pulled away from the edge, Haley's view of his hand disappearing as his body is yanked back. But abruptly, Rich's body is flung down from the cliff, and Haley turns away when he lands below with a sickening crunch. Haley finally gets the help she was asking for, though, and is pulled up violently by her rope. Before she's brought to the top, she takes out her knife and cuts herself free. Now, Haley clings to the side of the cliff for dear life. She sidles over to Rich's dangling rope, whimpering as she reaches out for it, but she loses her footing and goes flying. Haley grunts as she lands on the ground next to Rich's body.
So there's got to be a level of cunning with these villains.
Yeah.
I would not know to do that with a climber's rope.
No.
And I do have to say as well, there is a level of security in watching this for me personally, because you're not catching my ass on a cliff face.
Absolutely fucking not. That's why, like, as scary as the descent was, it's like, I'm not. I'm going to be fine.
Yeah. Whoever this happens to, that's terrible.
That sucks, dude.
I thought they had one of those little like things on there, you know, like the secret agents kind of rappel down on the rope. I thought they had one on there.
I thought so. I honestly don't understand much of this like preparation at all, because they climb it first to rig up the top of it and then come back down. How does any of this work?
No, I think they have the like gun like Batman.
Really? Like the grapple hook?
Yeah.
But Haley pulls herself up, clamping her hand over her mouth to stifle a scream as she looks down at Rich's wide and lifeless eyes. Up above, someone is moving through the trees, causing them to rustle and shake as they move through, screaming and laughing. Haley runs away, and we get a shot of Rich's body, left behind with its twisted neck. She sobs as she pushes through the trees to get back to the road. She finds her way there, and with the car in sight, she sprints forward, only to promptly fall over a spiky tripwire. She stares up at the car hopelessly before she is dragged off screen, and we hear squelching along with her screams.
So it is 2003, so I'm forgiving the dragging thing.
Yeah.
But we never need to do this again.
No more dragging.
No more. We're done. We've dragged ourselves to hell with this thing. No more.
No, I at right here, I was like, oh, this is going to be bad, huh?
It's the cold open.
I know. Hey, I was disappointed too.
I have a bad feeling about this.
It's so soon.
Yeah.
We are then treated to an early 2000s opening where the trees we are looking at go negative. The credits are displayed as we see the trees, a cabin, a limp hand with blood marring its palm, newspapers with headlines, West Virginia, mountain men legend endures. We see text reading, facial deformity caused by inbreeding, along with pictures of people to illustrate this abnormality. We see more photos of people along with the words genetic mutation. We see cells splitting, a woman lying still, chains, maps, and we get the title, Wrong Turn. The montage continues, snippets of text describing the strength of these individuals, close-up pictures of malformed teeth and gums, a finger running along the edge of a serrated blade. Missing flyers as we stalk through the woods in a POV shot. More pictures, more text of violent outbursts, more splitting cells, more limp and lifeless bodies, sharp knives, blood, the news reporting on a missing girl, bones, and finally, a finger with long, jagged, and unkempt fingernails pushing its way between someone's still and parted lips.
So I actually do kind of dig the opening of this film.
There was a time, like the heyday of these kind of montage. I love it. It feels so nostalgic.
Yeah, this wasn't bad. I was like, okay, you know,
Maybe not.
I'm back.
Maybe I was too hasty.
One thing I will say that is kind of disappointing though is these newspaper clippings.
Yeah.
Because they kind of set it up when they say Mountain Man legend endures.
Yes.
I'm like, oh, cool. Are we going to get some lore and maybe
Yes.
like a urban legend?
Mm-hmm.
Because that's fascinating and maybe we can learn more about what's going on here.
Yeah.
They just don't touch it at all.
Nope.
I feel like that is maybe my biggest issue, or at least one of my biggest issues, because that is so intriguing.
Yeah.
And it's just like, you only gave us that to be like, that's what you're going to see later. But it's like, no, like, what is going on out here? How did this happen?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
What's the story?
Yeah. But finally, we hover above a road flanked by forest on either side.
Take a shot.
Take a shot. Yes, of course.
You can't see it without thinking it.
Yeah.
Text on screen reads, Greenbrier Backcountry, West Virginia. So I was reading an article on, it was kind of like a retrospective of like 20 years later.
Mm-hmm.
And McElroy was quoted to say that the West Virginia Tourist Board Administration denounced Wrong Turn. And we're like, this is not a representation of West Virginia, of the people of West Virginia. But McElroy said that he was really excited to have struck a nerve. I looked for this denouncement. I cannot find it. But he was like, very excited about it, I guess.
Well, I could understand why they're pretty pissed off.
Yeah, I don't want to be looked at like that.
No.
That's crazy.
And I will say it was not filmed in West Virginia.
Okay.
It was filmed in, I think, a national park in Toronto.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
But when you said it there and you say this there, and then the only people that aren't this
Yes.
way are the people that aren't from here.
That's
Yeah.
It is. I would be pretty pissed off.
Yeah.
pretty fucked up, actually. We close in on a car as a scrambled radio zeroes in on a broadcast. The report says that Richard Stoker and Haley Smith have been missing since last Monday after failing to return from a weekend of rock. But inside the car, the sentence is cut off.
I will say, Haley Smith, I'm surprised they haven't found her. Her father is in the CIA.
That's true.
There is something, a little snippet, and I only caught it because of the subtitles.
Yeah.
But before that broadcast about the news, there's like a evangelist on the radio, and it says something about, I can't remember the exact quote, but it's something about planting a seed in your kin is hell bound, or all this stuff, which you shouldn't need someone to fucking tell you that on the
Yeah.
radio.
You shouldn't.
But it is, I guess, a bit of a foreshadowing towards what we're gonna see.
Right.
For sure.
And back to those news clips.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But again, that's it.
Yeah, that's all.
But the driver of the car, Chris Flynn, played by Desmond Harrington, slides a CD in.
We recall, speaking of him, a little recently, I'd say.
Yeah.
I have to tell you, I was so excited when I saw it.
He had a particular film that he liked to do, I think, at this time.
Yeah, immediately I was like, aren't you that ferryman?
Yeah.
Yes.
Ghost Ship.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we would later see him as Detective Quinn.
That's right.
Yes, of course.
Dexter. But it's surprising to me how many of these films that he was in at this time.
Yeah.
I was unaware.
Yeah, me too. And I was just I was like, oh, this is going to be great. But he puts in a CD and Mudvayne begins to play.
Man,
No, I'm
come
just
on.
Don't do that.
No, Halloween by the Dream Syndicate begins to play as he drinks coffee and speeds down the road. He has to stop, though, when he encounters standstill traffic on the freeway. Ambulances and police cars fly past with their sirens screaming. When they're out of sight and the traffic still doesn't move, Chris becomes impatient and turns off his car. He gets out and walks between the two semis in front of him. Once he gets to the cab of one, he knocks and Trucker, played by James Downing, lurches into view, startling him. Chris asks if the trucker has any idea what happened, and he does. After a moment, he leans in the window and explains that a tractor jackknifed about 5 miles up and spilled chemicals all over the road. Chris wonders if he knows how long it'll take to clean it up, but the trucker can only guess that it'll be a couple hours. Chris looks around, dismayed, and when the trucker asks if he's in a hurry, he shares that he is. He needs to be in Raleigh tonight. But the trucker has an idea. What Chris should do is go back to his car, fix his hair a couple hundred more times, and this is the line for Chris. He holds out his hand and makes his exit with a quick thank you.
Your hair is longer than mine.
I know. I don't understand.
Yeah. This was obviously written when the writer thought that the guy playing the lead would have longer hair. Like that. Because it makes no sense.
Yeah, just say a pretty boy or something.
Something,
It's
yeah.
like, and I don't know why he's being a dickhead.
I don't know either.
Really? Because he was just like, do you know how long it's going to
Yeah.
take? Won't you fucking go back? I was like, what?
It's like if he was using the trucker's side mirrors.
Yeah.
Like nothing.
Then maybe he can make fun of him a little bit. But Chris returns to his car where more traffic has piled up behind him. He's able to maneuver his vehicle out of the line and go back the way he came, his tires squealing as he goes. He makes a call to someone named Doris, and he says that he has an interview at 7 p.m. with a Mr. Keller. But before he can ask for a favor from her, the call disconnects. Frustrated, he throws the phone down into the passenger seat and continues on his way. When he sees a sign written in paint on a wooden plank proclaiming gas 1 mile, he turns off. He pauses at another sign, Rick's Good Value Gas, misspelled on a piece of wood before continuing forward. You Can't Quit Me, Baby by Queens of the Stone Age plays from the radio as Chris passes a lot of empty vehicles before finding the tiny gas station.
At least he has good taste in music.
He does.
He's 2 for 2.
I will be honest. You guys saying that, I kind of want to just listen to the soundtrack because I was very not paying attention because I'm just watching what's happening and I'm like, what is this dude? Where are we going now?
Yeah. No, it's good. It's good. But he gets out and approaches Old Man, played by Wayne Robson, who sits, dirty and staring, in front of the store. When Chris asks for a payphone, the man simply gestures in its direction before drinking deeply from a bottle of Pepto-Bismol.
He's got stuff going on, dude.
Yeah.
He's not worried about you.
No.
I'm worried about all these cars that are out here.
Yes. And again, it immediately makes me think of Texas Chainsaw.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But Chris hurries to the rusted phone and quickly finds that it doesn't work. He returns to the Old Man and asks if there's another phone he could possibly use. Squinting against the sun, the man asks if it's long distance, but looking around, Chris justifiably asks what wouldn't be long distance from here.
Yeah, insult where he's from. That's great. You live nowhere.
Yeah.
Can I use your phone, please? The Old Man asks if he's cutting wise, but Chris just tells him sincerely that he's running behind. He really needs to make a call. The Old Man says that that's his only phone. Desperate, Chris looks back toward the road. He says that the highway is jammed up and asks if the man knows any other route south. When the Old Man simply tells him no, Chris repeats the words softly. He nods and consults a map tacked up to the side of the store. Tracing along one of the lines with his finger, he asks the Old Man why Bear Mountain Road is dotted. The man just says, dirt. Chris clarifies that it's a dirt road, and the Old Man laments sarcastically that he's afraid they haven't gotten around to paving it yet. Still looking at the map, Chris guesses that it meets back up with the highway in 15 or 20 miles. He asks the man if this is right, and he just shrugs, if you say so. Chris looks it over one more time before thanking the man and telling him to take care.
I don't live here.
Yeah.
I understand I came in a little hot. But you could at least...
I need
Help me. Yeah.
Yeah. Don't you want me to leave?
Yeah. Maybe I'll get some gas. Yeah.
Yeah,
Honestly.
Yeah.
he's giving absolutely nothing. As Chris returns to his car, the old man sits back down with his Pepto and watches him drive away. He mutters, "You're the one that's going to need to take care."
What the hell is that?
Yeah. You should have said that before I left.
Yeah. It's like, I can't hear you.
Yeah.
He's like, "What'd you say?"
Yeah.
I'm listening to Queens of the Stone Age.
And so Chris sets off on the new route he found on the map. But he pauses when he comes to a fork in the road. On one side, the Fiesta Terrace, and on the other, the Springfield nuclear plant. No, but
Do the right thing, March.
yeah, she will. She did. No, he eyes a sign at its center announcing Bear Mountain Road. We press in on this sign and then on Chris as he sits contemplating behind the wheel. Finally, he takes a left at the fork. If Only by Queens of the Stone Age plays through the speakers as he continues forward, but the CD starts to skip. Wow, I have not said that phrase in a really long time.
And on such a great song, too.
Right? It's like, damn it. He reaches out to eject it, but it flies out and hits the passenger side floor. Still driving, Chris fully leans over to grab the CD, surprisingly without incident. And when he puts it back into the CD player, it works just fine.
That was very funny. Like the player didn't think it was great. It like spit that
Like,
thing
get the
out.
fuck out of here.
It was funny him driving and looking for it, and I'm like, come on, dude, stop. Just slow down or just stop.
Yeah, and he got very lucky to still be on the road at this point.
Yes.
Yeah.
To not have any incidents, as he said. So hopefully he'll take that into account.
Yeah, realize his luck and drive carefully.
Yeah.
With no distractions.
None.
No.
Centering his attention back on the road again, he notices a dead deer off to the side. Once he's distracted by it, literally continuing to stare at it in the rearview mirror once he's passed, suddenly there's another car in front of him on this previously desolate road. He crashes into it, crunching the front of his car and sending the bikes on top of the other one cascading into the road.
You're right, honestly, because he totally should have seen it. It was right in front
It
of
was
him.
right
Yeah.
in front of him.
It
And
was.
the road's straight.
Yeah.
But Chris jumps out of the car, ready to apologize. But Scott and Carly, played by Jeremy Sisto and Emmanuel Shariki, run over to him, more concerned with his well-being than with their own.
So Emmanuel Shariki, I remembered her from You Don't Mess with the Zohan from 08.
Oh my God.
I'm sorry. She was also in Detroit Rock City in 99, Waiting in 05, and Super Troopers 2 in 2018.
What?
Yeah.
I will say I shouldn't, but I did recognize her from Entourage.
Yeah.
You shouldn't.
I should not.
And Jeremy Sisto, again, recognizable. I was like, I know that guy.
Yeah.
He was in Clueless in 95, Suicide Kings in 97, and 13 in 03.
It was 13, baby.
And there was one credit that he did. Found it very interesting. He played Jesus in the movie Jesus in 99.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good for him.
Yeah. Blessed be. And we talked about him in May.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he was fantastic in May.
Yeah.
Yes.
And he was in 13 as well.
All right.
That was a hyperfixation movie for me.
That was on a lot.
Yeah.
Scott asks if Chris wants to sit down because he could be in a state of shock. But when Evan and Francine, played by Kevin Zegers and Lindy Booth, come over, the vibe is a little different.
Francine's probably looking for her daughter, Haley.
That's true.
But these two,
Yeah.
Yes.
that's kind of wild to see them together again.
I was very
Yeah.
excited.
Well, we remember them, Dawn of the Dead.
Yes.
We love
Yeah.
it.
With a similar dynamic.
Yeah.
It's like, should we just be together? What's going on? Evan demands to know why the hell Chris was driving so goddamn fast. Chris offers to pay for any damages, and Francine doubles down that he definitely will be paying because that's her mom's car. Scott swoops in to try to calm Francine and defend the stranger, but he's given pause when he sees that his bike was destroyed too. Chris asks how their tires were blown, and Francine informs him that there was a strip of barbed wire in the road. Carly doesn't understand why someone would just drop it there, but making her presence known for the first time to dispute this is Jessie Burlingame, played by Eliza Dushku. Jessie Burlingame is Jesse's name from Gerald's Game.
That's right.
Oh, shit.
So I was like, that's got to be a nod. And then also you have Francine, Franny, red hair. I felt like The Stand, maybe. I don't know. I was like, what? How deep does this go? Because Jessie Burlingame, that was
It's
on
not
purpose. You can't tell me it wasn't.
Yeah.
So Eliza Dushku, we know her.
Mm-hmm.
So I had forgot, and then looking it up, I was like, oh, she sure did. She did True Lies in 94. Yeah, I forgot she was in that movie.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. She was also in Bring It On,
Of course.
2000. The New Guy in 02. Because, it's the new guy. But she also did a Dollhouse, and she was on Buffy.
Yeah.
That's what I remember her from was Buffy.
Yeah.
And I did watch Dollhouse. It wasn't bad.
No?
No.
It's
She
one of
was-
those shows that only lasted a season, right?
Yeah.
Probably. She was everywhere for a while.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I gotta say, early 2000s, when you see the girl in the white tank top, you're like, that's our girl.
Yeah.
But Jessie asserts that nobody dropped it in the road. She holds up the barbed wire and shares that she found it tied to a tree. Someone did this. Jessie tosses the wire back down and eyes the wire wrapped around their tire as her friends mutter about rednecks and Southern hospitality. She proposes that they need to get to a phone and remembers that she saw a gas station a couple miles back. Carly immediately volunteers to go with her, but Chris breaks the news that they don't have a phone. He just came from there. Evan suggests that they just wait for someone else to come along, but Jessie quips, like Speed Racer here?
It's pretty good.
Yeah.
It's like, oh yeah, that's true.
Yeah, it was.
You know what? You got me there. Francine is adamant that she's not going anywhere, and Evan has the bright idea that he'll stay here with Francine and they can get high. Carly warns them to be careful because they don't like stoners, and as they start to bicker back and forth, Jessie finally focuses on Chris and asks his name. He tells her and she asks if he's hurt, but he says that he's fine. And as she tosses her bag over to him, she tells him that that's good because he's the mule. Scott volunteers to carry it instead because Chris just had the whole car accident thing.
I gotta say, the majority of these characters they're frustrating. They're grating.
Yes.
Yes.
But Scott seems like the nicest guy on the planet Earth.
Literally.
Literally everything just rolls off of him.
Yes.
Because his means of conveyance, I know it's Francine's car, but it's fine. His bike is trashed.
Yeah.
No worries.
He's like, are you okay?
Yeah.
I will be honest. I was frustrated too because I was like, this is your fault. You caused this wreck. You weren't paying attention. You were speeding on a dirt road. And then when he was like, are you okay? It's like, all right. Yeah. Are you all right?
Are you okay?
Yeah. Are you okay? Okay. It's like, yes. He doesn't need to carry it.
We watch from a distance as Chris, Jessie, Scott, and Carly walk out of view. Evan and Francine stay behind, already lighting up a joint. When asked if they're sure they're cool here, Evan assures the group that they will be fine. As they part ways, Evan passes the joint to Francine. He looks over the car and mutters that her mom is going to kick her ass.
I'm all for the ganj. And I was talking with your sister earlier. And I was like, no, I get it, And she was like, look, after what we just learned, nobody's getting high. And you're absolutely right. You found it tied to the tree. Somebody did that. Yeah, we need to be level-headed. Yeah, we can't.
That is a horrific piece of information to gather. And I feel like nobody acknowledges how terrifying that is.
Yeah.
We're not getting high. We're not splitting up. We're not it's just, I'm like, I want to shake them.
Yeah.
And also, nobody really needs to stay with the cars because nobody's driving either of these.
No.
Yeah, no.
Nobody's going to steal shit. They're fine where they are.
Right.
Carly and Jessie walk ahead as Scott and Chris follow, Chris still lugging Jessie's bag. Scott admits that he still can't believe that happened. He asks again if Chris is sure that he's all right, and Chris says that he is. But he asks Scott what they were doing out here. Scott says that they were camping before admitting that they were actually lost. He says that people who have had traumatic experiences say that the following moments feel like you're moving in slow motion, and he asks if Chris feels that way. Chris says that he doesn't, and Scott informs him that his voice is fairly low and normal in speed.
I was like, he's too likable to survive.
Yeah, Scott is not long for this world. But the two share a laugh at Scott's overcautiousness. Back at the car, Evan and Francine sit on the hood smoking. Francine asks where it came from, and Evan laughs when he shares that he got it from his dad's room. Satisfied, Francine says that he can finish it. We watch from the trees as Evan says that he can't believe they called them stoners, and they laugh, calling the departed group dickheads. Okay.
In the next scene.
Yeah. On the road, Carly is already complaining that she's tired, starving, and getting eaten up by ants. She asks if there's any on her back, and after a cursory glance, Scott says that there's not, but he's distracted by roadkill. He places his bet on it being a squirrel, and as they approach, he reminds Carly that she said she was hungry. Upon closer inspection, though, Chris corrects that it's not a squirrel, it's a mink. When they wonder how he knows this, Carly guesses that he probably ran over it. I was like, well, that's not the direction we went,
Yeah.
is it?
No, it's not.
Oh, okay.
She just hates me for ruining that car.
Yeah.
Which I understand.
And maybe I deserve that a little bit.
Yeah.
Honestly, the way that he is clearly crushing on Jesse already, I'm surprised he didn't like fashion that thing into a stole or something for her.
For my lady.
Yeah. Because it's obvious, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, of course. But Chris chuckles at Carly's accusation and corrects them again. In medical school, they make you work on animal cadavers before you get to the real thing, and that is a mink. Scott and Carly share a look before they continue on, and now the two of them linger behind Jesse and Chris. Consulting his watch, Chris tells Jesse that he needs to be in Raleigh by 7, and Jesse quips that he better get a move on then. Still sitting on the hood of the car, Evan says they should have just taken her to New York, but Francine reminds him that she loves all this outdoorsy stuff.
Do we ever learn where this group is coming from?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think so.
I don't know that it matters, but I think it would be interesting just to know more about these people.
Yeah.
Oh, no, we're not doing that.
Somewhere USA.
Yeah, we don't do that either.
So that was my first mistake.
What do you think this is? This is wrong turn.
Yeah.
But Evan disagrees. If you ask him, nature sucks. Francine concedes that the next time she gets dumped, not Francine, but the she that they're talking about, they'll take her to New York. Abruptly, Francine slides off the hood and tells Evan to drop his pants. He's confused by this, but Francine's reasoning is simple. What are they doing when people always seem to show up? Pulling off his shoes, no socks, wild work.
Yeah.
She frames it as an experiment in probability theory. Evan doesn't need much convincing, and we watch the couple from the trees as they start to kiss. Evan whispers to Francine that he loves her, and she responds with a smile that she knows. She slips into a thick southern drawl and jokes with Evan to take his trousers off and to not be a sissy, and Evan is happy to oblige.
Dude, and I know in response to that.
Yeah, that's wild.
Yeah, that's heartbreaking shit.
That's fine.
Like, cool, dude.
Yeah.
Red.
That's okay. Can we look around first?
Yeah.
I love the spirit. Let's.
But I think I hear someone in the bushes.
Yeah. Like, you heard her say somebody put that there, right?
It's that. It's so frustrating. And it reminds me, I saw an interview with Rob Schmidt, and he said that he talked to a film historian. And the film historian said that he went to go see The Exorcist in New York when it first came out.
Oh, wow.
And that there were these moments sitting in the theater that everyone would get scared. And in the moment of relief after the scare, everybody in the theater would light up a cigarette. And so he was like, this is this guy's story, all right? He said that the historian is like, where have I seen this before? And he's like, oh, I've seen it in porn theaters when people get all worked up during a sex scene, and once the sex scene is over, everybody starts everybody starts smoking cigarettes. So he's like, that's what horror films do. They rev you up and they get your adrenaline pumping, and then you feel the relief after. And I'm like,
This
I'm trying to.
story sounds like horse shit, dude.
Hold on.
You better be going.
Yeah.
I'm so confused by it.
Convince me.
I wasn't even going to mention it, but I'm like, no, I have to mention it. It was so bizarre. But I'm like, yeah, it's the same thing. For sure.
Guy.
Yeah.
You couldn't just go with the stereotype of the post-sex cigarette?
No.
Like, it's specifically
I've,
in porn
Yeah.
I've only
Theaters.
So weird.
in porn theaters. I was just like, because I'm taking notes, and I rewound it because I was like, did he just say that? No, he did. He did.
I'd like to talk to people who went to movie theaters when it was okay to smoke in movie theaters.
Yeah.
How often, like, did you see that a lot? Like, everyone, like, gets their
Woo!
shit rocked
Yeah.
and they're, like, just lighting up? That's just
That's
so strange.
It's
Yeah,
so
that's
interesting,
true.
though, but it makes sense. You know what I mean? Like, and that's why he like really had me. And then I was like, well, this took a turn I wasn't expecting.
It took a wrong turn.
Yeah, that's what it did.
But back on the road, Scott and Carly walk with their arms around each other. Scott admits that he's been thinking about the whole wedding thing, and he thinks they should just go down to Mexico. They could take a long weekend with margaritas and elope on the beach alone during the sunset. Carly seems open to the idea, but once he finishes his pitch, she stops him in his tracks. She tells him in no uncertain terms that if he ever wants to get into her pants again, then that will be the last time he uses the E word. Since getting into her pants again is a goal of Scott's, they start walking again, and he agrees that it's a disgusting word. But as they walk further, he spots a small fire burning in the trees off to the side of the road. He calls out to whoever might be up there, but they get no response. Chris realizes that the fire must mean that there are people around, but when Scott continues to call out, no one answers them. Jesse reasons that someone had to start that fire, but Chris insists that they just keep moving. He and Jesse start to walk ahead, but Scott calls out one more time before he and Carly join them. I'm very distracted and disheartened by the fact that somebody started that fire.
Absolutely.
Like, she
Yeah.
literally said that. Somebody started the fire. It's still burning. It's recent. And somebody also tied barbed wire to a tree to take out your car.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, no, I'm just like, where I would be throwing up. Like, this is terrifying. There's somebody in these woods and we've split up and nobody's respecting the gravity of these two things that we just found.
I think that's for me what kind of loses a little bit is like there's no awareness. There is no, hey, do you guys, like, is it just me or do you think this has anything to do with what happened to us?
With like that trap that we drove into.
Yeah.
It's just that nobody's saying it. And if they're thinking it, let's hear somebody talk to themselves or let's anything. They're just like, oh no, let's keep going. Why?
Yeah. I'm just, it gets a little frustrating.
There's just the mere acknowledgement of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
These things do exist. No connection.
Yeah. And then, no connection. And then we're going to be talking about innocuous bullshit in 5 minutes.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
It's just like, I'm scared. Like, this is, why are you scared? But back at the crash site, their side mission apparently fulfilled. Evan searches the back of their car and Francine looks through the front of Chris's. When she finds a bar in Chris's bag, she starts to eat it, but Evan calls out to her. He asks if she's found anything to eat because the group took all his power bars. Her mouth clearly full of food, Francine apologizes that she hasn't found anything.
Some couple, dude.
Yeah.
Well, she's post-coital. She wants a little snack. But
Well,
it's like, we can at
but
least split
still.
it.
Yeah, say something.
And then I'm sorry, dude, but it's piling up for her. I love you. I know.
Yeah.
I'm hungry.
Right,
It's
me
fucking
too.
Like, God damn.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got
She's like, you can starve.
And then going through this dude's shit.
Yeah, and I know she took his fucking power bars too. On top of it
she
all.
sort of probably ate him.
Evan continues to search, lamenting that Scott and Carly took all their sunscreen too. Francine looks through Chris's CD book, tossing the CDs over her shoulder one by one when she's not happy with them. And when Evan asks if she's found any good ones, she reports that she definitely has not. Evan hears rustling in the trees and abandons his spot in the back of their vehicle, but Francine doesn't even notice. She's found a drug handbook in Chris's bag and presumes that he must be some kind of doctor. Maybe they can get him to write them some prescriptions when he gets back.
Who are these people?
Yeah, this is like different. I don't understand.
I don't understand. Again, how do they fit in with the other group? Really?
I
Yeah.
don't know. I was watching behind the scenes stuff and they were like, and Francine's our bad girl. I was like,
Trying to score
Really?
some scripts and shit.
I know.
Like, God
I
damn.
get more raccoons. You're just
Scavenger.
Going, yeah, you're just going through
Just
shit.
eating food you find. And like,
Yeah.
like,
You
God
know how old
damn.
that is?
No.
no, it's wild. Evan just wanders into the trees as Francine tosses the book over her shoulder as well. She's also dismayed to find that Chris doesn't have any cigarettes either, and they're almost out. She takes one from their dwindling pack and lights it. And when she adjusts the rear view mirror to show their abandoned vehicle, she finally realizes that Evan is gone. Francine gets out of the car, but when she looks around and calls out for Evan, there is no sight or sound of him. On the road, Carly stops to pick flowers, and when Scott asks what she's doing, she joins him again, admitting that she's just amusing herself as he wraps his arms around her. Ahead of them, Jesse asks if he's getting any service on his phone, and Chris says sadly that he's not as he slips it back into his pocket.
Wait. And I forgot. So you have a cell phone. Why the hell aren't you going back to the main road? Or why, like you said,
Yeah.
why didn't you go back towards the main road where you know there's probably service right there?
I don't understand.
That should be a shorter distance from the crash than from where we're going.
Because we got to get to Raleigh. I don't know. I don't know. It makes no fucking sense.
Again, just the motivation of all these characters, and there's nobody to root for because constantly you're just like, why are you doing this? Why are you doing that?
Yeah.
Why aren't you
Yeah.
doing this?
I'm rooting for Scott, although I wish he would have taken the barbed wire in the fire a little more seriously.
There's some strikes against him, but he's doing the
He's
best.
not
He's all right,
perfect,
yeah.
okay? Jesse asks him why he didn't just fly to Raleigh, but Chris put all his money into that car that he just wrecked. Behind them, Scott brings up the wedding again as we press in on him and lose sight of Carly. He accepts that they won't be eloping, but he just wants them to hire a Frank Sinatra type as opposed to a James Brown type to sing in the wedding band. He says that they need to be honest. There's really only one James Brown, and a faux James Brown is just intolerable. Back at the cars, Francine drops her cigarette and we watch from under the car as she grinds it out with her tennis shoe. She asks Evan where he is, wondering if he's pissing or something. But when her only response is the distant cry of a bird, Francine grows worried.
Oh my God, he turned into a bird. Not again.
Right, come back.
Come quack.
Okay,
He's back.
Yeah.
now he's a She eyes a trail off the side of the road and spots one of Evan's shoes, removed and abandoned. She starts down the trail and picks it up, looking around the trees with the worried expression marring her features. But Scott is still talking about this potential James Brown-like performer who would be grinding his hips and making his grandmother both revolted and strangely fascinated in a disturbing way. Like, he's really thought a lot of But only now does he turn and realize that Carly is no longer walking beside him. He spins, trying to coax her back out by saying that he was only kidding. But Carly is nowhere to be seen. This was hilarious and very ridiculous to me
Mm-hmm.
because I knew when he's talking and we're pressing it on him and we can't see Carly anymore. We can't see Carly anymore, but Carly was walking right next to him.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So like this is just, he was really, I guess, lost in his thoughts. Like just ridiculous.
And I was like, God damn, we're really having both of these things happen at once
Yeah.
in these different sites.
Yeah.
Yeah.
2 people being murdered or whatever. I was
Right.
like, that's fast.
Yeah.
Oh, no, yeah.
Further into the trees now, Francine still looks for Evan. We get a musical sting and a zoom when she spots an ear lying bloody on the ground. But this isn't just any ear. It has Evan's distinct piercings. And when Francine realizes this, she whimpers in horror. She backs out of the trees, gasping and jerking her head at every perceived sound, but she never makes it back to the road. A hulking figure looms behind her, and before Francine even knows he's there, she's grabbed. The figure holds barbed wire and forces it into her open mouth. He lifts Francine with the wire, and blood spatters down the front of her as she screams.
So that's just the end of Evan,
Yeah.
which again is also like surprisingly fast.
Yes.
But to have her snatched up like that was very painful, it appears.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Can't help but wince when it does happen.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But I'm also just kind of disappointed in this entire group. Again, all of the signs of if you've seen one horror movie,
Literally.
Yeah.
none of this happens.
Literally.
It's the awareness again.
Yeah.
Yeah. But on the road, though, Scott is still looking for Carly, spinning around as he looks into the trees. He calls out for Chris and Jesse to wait for him, but they're long gone, and Scott stands alone in the road. He tells Carly that he's serious and this isn't funny, but just as he turns his back, someone jumps on him with a yelp. Scott gets the shit scared out of him, but it's only Carly, who can't help but laugh. She cackles until the shocked look on his face finally coaxes an apology from her. She cradles his face, but Scott warns her that he could have killed her because he is extremely dangerous. Okay.
All right.
I was like, oh. But Carly kisses him and tells him that she loves him so much because he is so fun to play with. They continue down the road, Scott admitting that she really did scare him and asking her to not do that again. Chris and Jesse, though, have come to a dead end. A sign on a stunted piece of railing overlooking Springfield Gorge tells them as much. It's a giant, chasm.
Yeah.
And oddly, this isn't the rock wall that we saw at the beginning.
Right.
No.
The cliff. I feel like it would have made a lot more sense and kind of for the viewer,
Yeah, I've been like, oh, fuck.
yeah, to revisit this area and you're like, oh, well, we know.
Yeah, because we've already been at this location.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It was here that I think, and I see in my notes, I felt kind of how you did a little bit earlier. No, I don't like any of my group yet.
Yeah.
Scott's cool, but
Yeah.
I mean, everybody is just kind of here.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really know much about anybody other than Chris is a doctor of some kind who likes roadkill.
Minks
Minks,
specifically.
minks.
Yeah.
Mostly, yeah.
That's it.
And he doesn't smoke.
And he doesn't. No, but he does. Well, whose cigarettes were those?
Francine's.
Oh, okay. Well,
And she was mad that he didn't have any cigarettes
Yeah.
for her to steal.
Mm-hmm. And I will say that we are putting a lot of emphasis on a wedding that we definitely know is never going to happen.
yeah.
But it's a huge chasm down below, and Chris's voice echoes when he calls out hello for some reason. Indicating the dead end sign, Jesse mutters that there's nothing like stating the obvious. Scott and Carly finally join them, and pretending to throw himself over the railing, Scott reasons that this might be a good time for Carly to confront her fear of heights. This scares not only Carly, but Jesse too, and Carly is adamant that that is not funny, but Scott tells her to look at who's scared now. Jesse props her foot up and leans on the barrier as Scott apologizes to Carly. For atonement, she demands a hotel room, a hot bath, and to be provided with lots of orgasms. Deciding that this conversation is none of their business, Chris and Jesse walk away. it's funny because they're like, "Whoa!"
Yeah.
like they're like scandalized.
Like, what kind of porn theater do you think this is?
Right, that was part of his research too.
Leaving them behind, Chris points out that they probably need to be alone, but this makes sense to Jesse, who informs the newcomer that Scott and Carly just got engaged. Chris just sees that they're happy, and that's hard to find, and Jesse agrees that it is. But back at the railing, Scott has agreed to the terms, and the two follow Chris and Jesse. After a few scenic shots, we watch through the trees as the group goes back the way they came. Jesse finally realizes that maybe they shouldn't have left Evan and Francine alone, but Chris is like, they're fine. As Chris checks on Scott and Carly, who are once again lagging behind, we pan across the mossy ground. They turn onto another road, and Jesse points out that it's not on the map. Carly just jokes that that's because they don't have a redneck atlas. But Scott is excited to see a rundown house, abandoned cars littering the property, and smoke streaming from the chimney.
If you're Chris, wouldn't this kind of make you think of the gas station and be like, oh, maybe dude from the gas station lives here?
Yeah.
But it's like he had cars scattered across there.
He sure did.
To bring it up?
Yeah. But Scott takes this to mean that they've been saved, and he and Carly hurry along. But it's Chris and Jesse's turn to lag behind now, wearing twin expressions of suspicion. Chris tells her that they'll make this quick. Scratching his head as they approach, Scott seems to be growing nervous. He proposes that maybe they should just keep walking, but Carly asks if he expects the next house to have a white picket fence, and Scott allows that there might not even be a next house. Jesse points out the abandoned vehicles to Chris, a van and a vintage car. Tattered clothing and belongings spill out, and a rusted bike lies on the ground on its side. Chris asks what she means, but she dismisses it. What? What do you mean? I was like, dude, this is fucking the scariest thing I've ever seen. We peer at the group through the windows of another rusted out van, abandoned clothing thrown haphazardly across the open windows, and yet another useless bike mounted on its back. Chris makes his way to the front and knocks on the door, asking if there's anyone home. As they wait for a response, Carly uses a piece of metal to ring a mounted triangle. When the sound of the instrument sings out, Scott admonishes her. When there's no sound or movement from within, Chris opens the screen door. Jesse asks what he's doing, and as if this is totally normal behavior, Chris reasons that they just want to see if they have a phone.
It's like, I'm just going to break in real quick.
Yeah.
He's like, what's the problem?
It's wild. I'm a doctor.
I'm a doctor. Let me in. I'm an expert in minks. He invites the rest of the group to wait outside if they want. Jesse informs him that they can't just go barging into someone's house, and Scott agrees, adding that trespassing in West Virginia isn't a good combination. Carly alerts the group that she needs to pee, and Scott suddenly feels the need to remind her of a little movie called Deliverance. The two eye each other, but Chris reminds them that they have 2 wrecked cars. They need a phone.
I'm sorry, dude. We have gone through a lot of wilderness.
Yeah.
There's a bathroom there. There's a bathroom there.
I'm saying, dude,
come on.
This might be the beginning of a nonstop annoyance with Carly that doesn't stop until it stops.
Yeah.
I want to shake her.
Yeah, which is really odd to do that to one of your characters.
Yeah.
Because, again, I know it sounds bad, but I know we already don't, care about these characters, or I don't at this point. I'm still just kind of like, what's going on?
That was a self-report.
Yeah, well.
We all fucking hate these people, right?
Just making sure.
Yeah.
But you do that, it's like, come on, man. I don't like you anymore. Period.
Yeah, it's very... I'd be like, if you don't fucking squat behind those trees, and I'm not a squat behind the trees kind of girly, but I'm squatting behind those trees.
Especially what we are all experiencing.
Yes, and looking at this house, even from the outside, and we've not seen the inside yet.
No.
I don't even want to imagine what this fucking bathroom would look like.
Yeah.
And I'm really sorry, dude, but even if you're the owner of the house, can you imagine this unreasonable fucking request? You're in your house and 4 complete strangers walk up to your door and they're like, can I piss here, please? What the hell are you talking about?
Yeah.
No. Go outside. You are outside.
There's so
Yeah.
much outside. Like, there's so much of it. Carly turns to Scott and nods at Chris's sentiment about them needing a phone, but Scott and Jesse still look uneasy. Without waiting for anyone else to chime in, Chris opens the door and steps inside. Carly hurries in behind him, and after a moment of hesitation, Jesse follows, muttering Carly's name. Finally, Scott follows them, still glancing around nervously through the screen before closing it behind him. And that's another thing. The chimney is pumping out smoke. This is not an abandoned house. Like, you're out of your fucking mind.
Someone could be napping.
Yeah.
Yes.
Someone obviously could be on their way back.
Mm-hmm.
Or they could be like me and silently waiting for whoever's at the door to leave.
I don't want you to know I'm here.
Yeah.
Don't do this. They step inside, Chris still calling out for anyone that might be there, but one look around the room silences him. Old and rotten food still sits on plates served at the table. Flies buzz loudly over crusted cups, pitchers, and jars. Chris's gaze lifts from the dinner table and travels over to an end table in the living room. A phonograph sits at its center, the record on it still spinning silently. It's surrounded by clutter and filthy closed jars. Jesse proposes that they just do what they need to do and get out of here. I'm taking one look at this place and I'm running for the fucking hills.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was my question to you guys. We'll just insert some random NPC with us, and then they got to go to the bathroom.
Uh-huh.
And then it's like, okay. How long after we cross that threshold of the door and just take a look around? Maybe a minute, 2 minutes, and then it's like, you know what?
If that.
Yeah, it would be a split second.
Well, I'm also confused as to what the fuck is even going on here because that food is old as shit.
Yeah.
But the fire's still raging and you got your music going.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I'm like, what is the story here? I don't need to. I don't want to know.
No,
the story.
This is
That's okay.
Yeah.
As nosy as my ass is, this is none of my business.
no.
We were never here.
The only thing this place is missing is a laughing chicken.
You literally.
Yeah.
Let's get out now.
Chris takes the needle off the record and switches the phonograph off again before yelling, "Hello?" But Carly mutters that she's not sensing a phone here. Looking around, Scott asks who lives here, and Carly admits that she doesn't know, but she asks Scott to help her find the bathroom. This is what I'm saying. The bathroom is the most concerning place in the house. Like, if your living room is this filthy, I'm not going in your bathroom. I'm not. Like, I would rather piss on myself. I can't stress how badly I don't want to see this bathroom.
I don't know what Carly is thinking, honestly. She's like, well, I'm sure if they've been neglecting everything else, they've been really focusing on that bathroom.
That's the only thing clean.
Yeah,
You
the
think it's gonna
porcelain is shining and white.
You think it's going to smell like fucking Clorox?
No, everywhere smells like shit here.
Yeah.
Let's go.
We have to get out of here. Scott laments that he thinks this is the bathroom, earning a pained sigh from Carly. Chris looks around the kitchen, corroded mixing bowls and congealed grease. Jessie wanders around on her own and finds a bowl with multiple sets of keys inside.
Come on.
Yeah, I
What
know.
more do you...
It starts to get to a point where in here that I like, honestly, it's just unbelievable all the things we continue to find and uncover. Nothing ever gets put together and nobody's like, we need to get the fuck out of here now.
No.
Do you know what this reminded me of genuinely is the scene in Cabin in the Woods when they're all in the basement
Oh,
and
yes.
it's like, what are they going to pick up? You know what I mean? Because it's like, it's so like ridiculous. You like, I that's literally what this felt like, especially in a minute because everybody kind of like splits
do.
up.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I don't know. Carly begs Scott again to help her come find the bathroom, but he's ready to go. He asks her, what if this place belongs to some kind of cult? He actually read in Newsweek that economically depressed places are breeding grounds for apocalyptic visionaries. He rattles some off as Chris still looks around, sharp objects hanging by the window and a heavily populated fly strip dangling from the ceiling behind him. Carly interrupts Scott, calling him a brainiac and shushing him. This is enough for Scott to acquiesce and point toward a door that might be the bathroom. He opens it and they're both startled when a paddle falls out, crashing to the ground in front of them. Scott picks it up and sets it back inside the newly unveiled closet, rattling chimes of cherubs that hang from the ceiling. The closet is filled with boxes and containers of items, and we settle on a box of cameras. Scott mutters that it looks like the garage sale from hell. No, it looks like shit that they've stolen from vehicles.
Yeah.
Once they've killed the occupants.
And again, I'm sorry, but his discussion of all of these people from Newsweek or whatever.
Yeah.
You've never also read about like a
The
torture
mountain
family?
legend? Yeah.
He's like, this reminds me of... Nah.
No. It's a garage sale from hell.
Let's find that bathroom.
Come on, kid. Jessie has found another pile of random items. She opens a music box, a ballerina spinning proudly at its pristine and pink interior.
And we're definitely getting Cabin in the Woods.
Yes!
Yeah.
She leaves it open and the music continues to play as she wanders off to find a collection of random sunglasses. Still standing in the closet off screen, Scott guesses that there could be $30,000 worth of stuff in here.
What an estimate.
Yeah.
What is this? Fucking storage wars? Get out of here.
But even that doesn't that make it more concerning?
Yes.
But Chris is still standing in the kitchen, and only now does he spot a giant pot boiling on the stove. He grabs the spoon inside and ladles up a meat, dark and unidentifiable. Jessie calls his name, picking up a child's plastic tiara dotted with colored jewels. But Scott and Carly have finally found the bathroom. She goes inside, annoyed when Scott tells her to be quick and that he'll be waiting right outside the door. She checks her hair in the mirror before going toward the toilet.
I'm sorry. What did you expect him to say? Take your time, honey.
Yeah.
She's like, oh my gosh, shut the fuck up.
Can we talk about the boiling? Like, I just,
Yes!
I don't understand.
Mm-hmm.
Chris has let himself into another room. As the door swings open, he's greeted by multiple filthy and stained fridges and ice boxes. The wooden floors creak beneath his shoes as he continues forward. We hear a low and constant hum, and Chris finds the cause of the sound, a generator. He eyes it as it chugs along. Jessie is wandering around alone and finds a quiver hung next to a window filled with arrows. In the bathroom, Carly holds her nose and grimaces as she looks down at the stained toilet. A fly dances along its porcelain, but Carly's attention has shifted to jars, one of which is filled with teeth and the other entire upper palates, the preserved and yellowed teeth plain as day. She mutters, ew.
That's it?
Yeah.
Nobody has a house like this.
No.
Like,
No.
This is not in like 2% normal.
No.
Yeah.
This isn't dentures on the side of the bed.
No.
It's that. That's very like, really? I would like a bigger, hey guys, or
Yeah.
anything. Anything.
I found a jar of pallets.
Yeah. Something. You're just ew.
Yeah,
Like,
gross.
That's it. Yeah.
Chris is still in the room with the generator. His eyes travel across the ceiling and a mounted fan, sunlight spilling in and disturbing the dust floating in the air. The generator slows to a stop, and Chris decides to open one of the fridges. It is filled completely with jars and covered containers. The jars, I think, pretty clearly contain organs.
Yeah.
But he stares at this discovery with no discernible emotion as someone slowly enters the room behind him. Jesse is looking around the living room and picks up the decapitated head of a staring doll as Carly still looks around the bathroom, hugging herself, her face etched with worry. Chris pulls one of the covered containers from a shelf in the fridge, while Jesse pulls a piece of clothing off of one of the boxes in the living room. Inside the box is a blonde plastic doll and a tangle of barbed wire. She calls out for everyone to come and see this, but Chris is prying the lid off of that container. There is something organic inside, bloody and visceral. Chris goes, "Oh no."
That's it?
Yeah.
What do we even do?
I don't know. And why do I need to go look at the wire that you found?
Thank you.
Just, hey, we need to go.
And first of all, everything that we've seen here, it's barbed wire. That you're
Yeah,
like,
that-
fuck?
yeah.
guys, I don't think we're meant to.
I think it's her saying they're the ones that did this.
The connection, but I don't give a fuck what they're doing.
But no,
Yeah,
I just need to. I only came here to get directions on how to get away
yeah,
from it.
so if they didn't set that trap up for us, it's okay.
It would've
Everything's
been
fine.
Yeah.
Go to the bathroom. We'll
Yeah,
maybe take some of this meat with us.
Yeah. It's a long walk back.
It is a
We
long
have
road.
we have no power sauce bars left. In the bathroom, Carly peers into a filled tub. She first sees a clump of hair and then a literal floating hand. This is the line for her, and she kind of calmly calls out for Scott as she heads to the bathroom door. There's a body in there.
Yeah.
But Scott is slowly reaching out for Chris's shoulder because he's the one that entered the room behind him. Carly calls him with mounting intensity as she enters, but we still have a second for a jump scare when Scott clamps his hand down on Chris's shoulder. Carly pleads that they have to go now, and without another word, Chris covers the container back, throws it into the fridge, and slams the door. They hurry into the living room calling for Jessie, but somehow she's behind them now and scares them when she answers, asking what's going on. Chris asserts that they need to go back to Evan and Francine. Jessie still asks, "What about a phone?"
No.
Yeah.
But Chris is certain that there is no phone. He hurries to the window and yells, "Shit!" And we see what he sees. The sunlight glinting off the windshield of a yellow tow truck as it makes its way onto the property. The tense score mounts, and when Chris points out that he saw a back door, the group scatters. Scott opens the door to reveal nothing, just the back wall to the house. He slams his shoulder against it again and again, trying to break it down. But Chris yells his name, certain that it's not going to budge and telling him to come on. The truck continues its way up to the house, and we see that behind it, it pulls Francine's mom's vehicle. The truck finally slows to a stop and the engine shuts off. When it does, the four inside freeze before quietly rushing off to find hiding places. The driver gets out of the truck and enters the house, but our view is only on his feet as he moves along. He drops a thick coil of barbed wire onto a bed, and we pan down to see Jessie and Chris hiding quietly underneath. A second set of feet joins the first, and the owner mutters in an unknown language as they both move around the living room. Suddenly, they drop Francine. Her body is covered in blood, and the barbed wire that was inserted into her mouth was dragged, and it stays embedded deep within her cheek, stretching an unnaturally wide smile as her eyes stare lifelessly toward Chris and Jessie.
I do want to point out that she is clearly and noticeably breathing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I thought that she wasn't dead yet.
Yeah, I did too.
Right?
Yeah.
I did
Same
too.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, she's dead. She's dead. Jessie hides behind Chris, who lies on his stomach in the dirt of the floor, and she covers her mouth as she starts to sob. Francine begins to bleed, a dark stream pouring from her body, cutting its way through the dirt and making its way to Chris's still hand. He doesn't move. Maybe she's dying because you don't bleed when you're dead.
The stare, though.
Yeah.
And she didn't recognize them or anything?
Yeah. Yeah. One of the men comes back and lifts Francine slightly before dragging her out of view. He grunts something to the other man before dropping her on a table. Her limp arm dangles over the side, and her hand remains in Chris and Jesse's view. We see glimpses of these men, their faces bulging and deformed, with sharp, sparse, and overlapping teeth decorating their exposed gums. They go to work on Francine. These are Sawtooth and One Eye, played by Gary Robbins and Ted Clark, and they grin excitedly as one of them takes a saw to her and begins cutting.
So Sawtooth, Gary Robbins. Looking him up, I did see that he used to be a professional Canadian wrestler.
Really?
Yeah, it said that he started out and he did the wrestling thing, but he liked acting better. He went by the name Paul Bunyan and the Canadian Giant.
Very cool.
Yeah.
I read that he's over 7 feet tall.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he looks gigantic.
Yeah. I thought it was interesting, too, because Schmidt said that he wanted to cast the Mountain Men before designing anything. And so they cast these men, and we may meet another one later. And Shane Mahan, who I guess works like right under Stan Winston, he designed them and brought on a team of sculptors. So they studied medical texts for the distortions and deformities that inbreeding can cause. And they made full body sculpts.
Oh, wow.
Head,
Damn.
body. Stan Winston had said that he wanted to make, they wanted to make these men as grounded in reality as they could, because that's what makes it scarier. And he said that what Jaws did for oceans,
Oh, no.
Wrong Turn will do for camping.
Huh.
Because
But nobody's camping in this film.
Yeah.
they were going camping.
Yeah, but we didn't even get set up. We didn't.
No.
It's not a camping movie.
No.
No. Blair Witch was more of a camping movie, I'd say.
Well, tell that to Stan Winston.
Yeah. They did camp.
They did.
Yeah, they did.
Let's watch that.
I do appreciate that they all have their own vibe.
Mm-hmm.
They said that One Eye was supposed to be more childlike, kind of like subservient. You absolutely see that. They have different like expertises, different movement styles. I did like that. I was a little distracted though writing this because I kept thinking of Futurama when they were making fun of Leela and they were going one eye, one eye. That's all I kept thinking because I had to type one eye a lot.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the men goes back to Chris and Jesse's hiding spot and props up a shotgun. Chris stares stoically as one of the shells is dropped and rolls right next to him. Jesse's breath comes in shudders as a hand drops into view, feeling around blindly for the shell. Chris remains silent and just moves out of the way, narrowly escaping being found out when the man grabs the shell and stands back up.
Did anybody else think he should have just handed it to him?
Yeah.
I was expecting him to like push it out. But he lets out a high and manic laugh as he picks the shotgun back up and walks away. We follow one of the men as they walk with a serrated blade to the table where Francine lies, but we take a detour through the keyhole of a door where Carly's wide and trembling eye stares. And through the reflection in her eye, we see the blade brought down on Francine. The high laughter accompanies the sound of slicing and squelching as Scott clamps his hand over Carly's mouth to silence her grief and horror.
The shot of the eye put me in the mind of Black Christmas
Yeah.
Okay.
and Texas Chainsaw.
Yeah. We cut to the pale sky before panning back down to the House of Horrors, smoke still pouring from the chimney. We scan over the interior, past the kitchen where sunlight spills in sickly through the windows, to the table where Francine lies face down and topless. Her right leg below the knee has been completely removed, as has her left arm below the elbow. We continue our tour of terror past 2 beds, each occupied by one of the men, slumbering and snoring. One Eye is asleep on the bed that Chris and Jesse hide under, and he has his arm hanging off. Chris navigates past it as he finally slides out from under the bed. When One Eye lets out a wheeze of air in his sleep, Jesse tries to hold him back. But Chris eyes One Eye carefully when he pulls himself free and helps Jesse out. Across the room, Scott silently pulls the door to the storage closet open and lets out Carly first, returning his hand to her mouth to remind her of the importance of her silence. Jesse pantomimes for them to be quiet before grasping onto Chris's hand. They cling to each other as they move forward, copying Jesse and Chris's slow journey to the front door. They are hyper aware of every sound they make, moving completely silently. But distracted and staring at the sleeping men who cradle their guns as they snore, Carly kicks over a pitcher and it clatters loudly.
Fantastic work.
Yeah.
Fast becoming our favorite character.
Yeah.
My thing about this entire sequence, there are 2 of them, there are 4 of us.
Yep.
It is not as if they just came home and fucking fell asleep. We watched them butcher our friend.
Yeah.
They're asleep right now. Let's beat them to death.
Yeah, John Paul said the same thing.
I'm so confused.
He goes,
Why do we have to sneak to anything? Fucking kill these 2 dudes.
Yeah, he goes, why are we not killing
Yeah.
them in their sleep?
It makes no sense. And then we don't have to worry about anything unless there's maybe like one more or something.
But like, there's no evidence of that.
Yeah.
No, I'm sure they're
Or
fine.
let's take these arrows in their quiver because they'll undoubtedly use them on us. Something.
But even if you're worried about some kind of like the cops explaining this, whatever, look at all the evidence around. I don't think there's anything to worry about.
No.
Any kind of legal backlash.
No, they had it coming. That'll be what the cops say.
No, yeah.
No, we get it.
No, if you'd have been there, if you'd have seen it, I bet you would have done the same. I'm just saying.
Very fair.
But Carly gasps at kicking this pitcher over and everyone freezes. But when this earns nothing from the men but a couple twitches in their sleep, Jessie raises her finger to her lips again, imploring them to be quiet.
And they're heavy sleepers.
Yeah.
On top of it.
No, y'all fucked up.
Yeah.
Big time. The score is tense as Scott and Carly pass Francine's body, and Carly covers her mouth to stifle her sobs. Jessie turns the doorknob, and it opens with no problem. Once Carly gets closer, Jessie grabs her hand and pushes open the screen door. It squeaks loudly, but Chris reaches up and grabs the screen's spring to silence it. Again, the men just continue to snore, undisturbed by the noise. Chris squeezes the spring with a shaking hand and whispers for them to go. Jessie holds the screen open and Carly and Scott sneak out. Chris strains as he continues to hold on and whispers again for Carly to go, but she mouths for him to come on. The spring has cut into Chris's hand, and his face reddens as blood pours from his palm. He silently demands that Jessie go first, and she runs away. Finally, Chris lets go of the spring and looks back into the room to find Sawtooth awake and staring with wide eyes. Chris sprints away and follows Carly, Scott, and Jessie as they struggle to climb the steep hill away from the house, their shoes sliding in the sand.
That hand's a total teardown. Like,
Yeah.
it's never gonna be right again. I feel it turning necrotic as I'm talking to you.
Total terror. When they finally get to the top, Chris freezes at the rumbling of an engine coming alive. They look down to see that yellow tow truck hitting the road again. Sawtooth and One Eye hold on to either side, pumping their arms and whooping as the truck leaves the house. But we are unable to see that who's behind the wheel.
Oh, that's also true.
The group runs through the trees, Carly wondering if that really just happened and hoping that Evan is still okay. I don't think he is. When Carly inevitably falls, Scott drops down to help her up, but she sobs that she can't. Jessie doesn't accept this and lets go of Chris's hand to go back to Carly. She demands that she get up. Carly argues that Jesse didn't see what she and Scott saw. She didn't see what they did to Francine. But Scott holds her face and gets her attention. He swears to her that they will get out of this. They'll find a road, get to a town, go home, and get married. And then they'll never go into the woods again. This grounds Carly enough for her to hug Scott back. And Chris reminds them that they need to get moving.
I respect the optimism.
Yeah.
That's all I'll say.
All four of them sprint out of the woods and into a clearing littered with abandoned vehicles. They're all clearly tossed, their trunks open, their belongings scattered on the ground, and some of the vehicles are smeared with blood. Chris looks past a blood-streaked and discarded cooler toward a van with its trunk open, cords spilling out like intestines.
This, again, is Texas Chainsaw.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All the field of cars that they pass through.
Yeah.
Clothes lie in the grass next to an abandoned face-down baby doll. Scott and Carly cling to each other as Jessie hugs herself, eyeing chunks of viscera and blood. She asks how they've gotten away with this. Scott has been muttering, all these people, but he wonders if there are any keys and if any of the vehicles can still run. Chris, though, sees dust spraying into the air above the tree line. The tow truck's engine rumbles as it rolls by unseen. He whispers at them to all get down, and the group gathers, crouched behind one of the open cars. And sure enough, the tow truck pulls up and the men from the house jump out. Sawtooth has the quiver of arrows securely strapped to his back.
See, that's on you.
And I'm going to be honest, he watched that truck drive up and then was like, get down.
Look, yeah.
You could have been like, oh shit, I hear a truck. Everybody hide. What? Why did you wait so long? Did you have to make sure? You knew it was them.
Who else could it
it's
be?
them. It's them, yeah. From the driver's seat hops out the smallest of the three, Three Finger, played by Julian Richings. He scurries along the two of them as they start to walk toward the clearing.
So Julian Richings, looking into his stuff, he did theater before he did film. And it looks like he did something called Hardcore Logo, which is really high rated, and there's two of them.
Oh.
He was also in Cube in 97.
Cube would be a blast to cover.
It would.
I don't think I've seen that.
We watched it when we were kids.
Yeah.
Like quite a few times.
Yeah.
I wanted to say I did, but then I was like, no, that was The Cell.
Yeah.
And that was not.
It's different.
We have talked about that one already.
He was also in Percy Jackson and the Olympians, The Lightning Thief
All right.
in 2010, and Man of Steel in 2013.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I read, they said that it was Stan Winston's idea to make Three Finger smaller because the way that McElroy wrote them, they were all three huge, hulking, like, menacing figures.
Okay.
But Stan Winston said that Three Fingers' agility makes him dangerous in a different way.
Okay.
And Schmidt had said that, like I said, they hired the actors before and then they started designing the characters. They had to get the character designs approved by all three studios.
Oh, wow.
Before they could continue forward.
Damn.
Yeah.
I think variety is the spice of life.
Yeah.
You need to have them a little bit different.
I definitely think it works better. Like I said, even their movements are different. Even One Eye and Sawtooth being huge, like they move differently. They have a different vibe to them. I think that does make it more realistic instead of just these like three identical, like horrifying dudes. You know what I mean? Jesse points out that they're coming this way and asks in a whisper what they should do. Chris realizes that they've left the truck running and he insists that they need to take it. Jesse doesn't understand how they're supposed to do that, but Scott has an idea. One of them can lead the men in the wrong direction. Then the rest get the truck and go after the runner. Three Finger prances through the grass while One Eye and Sawtooth lumber behind him. Scott tells them that his plan is a classic military move. Jesse barely has time to ask who goes before Chris volunteers.
Is that to imply a history for any of them?
I don't know.
I don't know. I think that Scott is just
A reader?
like well read.
Yeah.
Chris jumps to his feet and runs away from the group, sprinting toward the trees, waving his arms and screaming at the inbred men that he's over here, but without hesitation. One Eye aims his gun and takes fire. As Jesse, Carly, and Scott watch, Chris is shot in the back of the calf as he launches himself past the tree line.
He didn't even zigzag or anything.
No, just a straight line. That's fine.
He's like, I'm right here. They're like, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. One Eye cries out in celebration. They stare at Chris, then at the approaching men. When they look back at Chris, I'm sorry, I laughed out loud because Chris has just been shot. And he's rolling around in pain and he goes, go!
Well, that was the whole plan.
Yeah.
I'm the diversion.
Yeah.
And they're just staring.
We just talked about it.
They're like, oh shit. I'm like, dude, why are you still here?
I couldn't stop laughing.
It's very
'Cause
funny.
it's like, I got shot for this and you're wasting it.
Like, oh man, they got Chris. What do we do?
Yeah.
Scott grabs Carly. He tells her to get to the truck and he'll meet her there. Carly, of course, tries to protest, but Scott silences her with a kiss and a vow that he loves her. He sprints away in the opposite direction of where Chris is, calling out to the men and cursing at them. When One Eye fires at him, Scott is like, too fast, and he manages to dodge being hit. Jesse cradles Carly, shushing her and promising her that it's okay. Three Finger lets out a high-pitched peal of laughter and runs off in Scott's direction. So Schmidt said that the producers told him to cut out or at least tone down Three Fingers' laugh.
Mm-hmm.
But he refused. And he said that he would go to theaters and watch Wrong Turn with the audience, really watch the audience watch Wrong Turn when it came out. And when he saw people's reaction to his laugh, he was glad that he had stood firm.
Mm-hmm.
And he said that when the movie was over, a lot of times people would be doing that laugh to try to scare whoever they came with.
Okay.
I mean, it's really the only bit of character from the trio.
Yeah. They're like, cut that out.
Yeah. That's true.
It kind of makes me think of like an orc.
All right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They are talking shit and kind of like running around and whatever, and that is his character.
Yeah.
And it does make it scarier if like one of them loves this.
You know,
Yeah.
he's having
Yeah.
the time of his life. Chris is still in the trees, trying to stop the bleeding in his leg. He pulls off his belt and starts to tie a tourniquet. Once the men disappear out of sight on their quest for Scott, Jesse and Carly hurry over to Chris and help him to his feet. Flanking him on either side, they make their way out of the trees. But Scott is still hauling ass, sweat staining the once crisp yellow of his button-down. The tension mounts as we cut between him running and Jesse and Chris and Carly running.
We're on the move.
Yeah.
When they finally make it to the tow truck, Chris tells Jesse to go ahead of them. She hurries to it, yanking open the passenger door, only for a body to fall out and crumple to the ground. When they see that it's Evan, Carly lets loose an unbridled scream. Jesse climbs into the truck and Chris goes behind her, having to literally pull Carly along when she repeatedly sobs that she can't. But once all three are inside, they shut the door. Scott is panting, still racing along by himself, but there is no sign of any of the men behind him. Jesse steers the truck in the opposite direction of where it was pointed, but there is someone skittering along its side when she turns. He makes his presence known in the form of a gunshot, forcing the three in the cab of the truck to jump. It's Three Finger, giggling maniacally as he runs behind them. Even as they pull away and his reflection in the side mirror is lost, Three Finger continues to laugh as he runs down the road behind them. I will say as well, being distracted by one eye, I wrote little finger a lot. And had to go back and fix it. As they pull onto a familiar tree-lined road, Carly is adamant that they have to find Scott. It's like, no, we do?
Yeah.
Like, Jesse looks around frantically, asking where he is, but Carly spots him, still running at full speed toward the road at the sound of the oncoming truck. But somewhere behind him, Sawtooth stands triumphant, he and his arrow-filled quiver blotting out the sun behind him. As he plucks one of the arrows, the inhabitants of the car scream at Scott to come on. Jesse stops the truck, and just as Scott is in sight, his impressive sprint is halted at the sound of a worrying thud.
I'm a little pissed off at everyone in the car because he's clearly caught an arrow in the spine.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Carly's like, what's wrong?
Yeah.
It's us. It's me, your fiance.
Right. Why does he look scared?
Yeah, why'd he stop?
He stops, steadying himself on a tree before continuing toward them with a dazed expression and unsure steps. They yell at him to come on.
Pick up the pace.
This dude has been running full speed this whole time. If he stopped, there's a reason he stopped.
Yeah.
But Scott suddenly lurches forward at the impact of another arrow. He croaks, struggling to breathe, as he grasps onto a sapling to hold himself up. Carly begs to know what's wrong, but Scott looks down as a bloody red rose blooms in the center of his shirt. As he's staring at it, another arrow stabs through the middle of it for good measure. Carly is hysterical and Chris has to hold her back, but Scott can take no more. He finally slumps down to the ground, the 3 arrows sticking out of his back on display for everyone to see. Chris and Jesse shield Carly's eyes as she sobs, begging for them to let her go. But when Sawtooth loads up another arrow, Chris yells at Jesse to drive. I don't know how Chris saw
Don't know.
him load up another arrow, but we should have been driving anyway.
Yeah. I think I get it. And this is very tragic what's happening right now in front of us. Why are you still sitting here? Why did both of y'all need to hug her and be like, it's okay, dude?
Right now?
Yeah, right now.
It's
We'll
not
get
the
you through
time.
this.
We've got to go.
Yeah.
Sawtooth draws the bow back, and despite Chris's protests, the vehicle stays still long enough for the arrow to shatter the passenger window, which was only half open.
Yeah.
Finally, Jesse speeds away. The 3 sit in the cab, Jesse behind the wheel trying to get them to freedom, Carly sobbing for her lost love, and Chris staring catatonically. So Schmidt said that he wanted to give Scott, he wanted him to die a hero's death. And I think he did.
But he showed up our protagonist.
Yes,
Yeah.
he did.
By a lot.
By a lot.
It almost felt like when Malcolm ran when he seen Dr. Grant in trouble and he was like, oh no, the kids. And he took,
Right.
You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
he's like, I'm going to help too. So he is doing good. But I mean, that's so funny the way Chris gets shot. Like, I think this all happening, it's like, what the fuck?
Chris, that was comical.
Yeah.
And again, the thing about it is, look, with Scott, we got somebody who's jovial, affable, heroic.
Yeah.
What the fuck even is Chris? We know nothing about him except that he's late for a job interview, which means nothing to me.
Yeah.
And now we're stuck with this loser
Yeah.
for the rest of the film?
Yep. For a little while.
Yeah. But the way that they did this, obviously they had a plate on his back with the arrows sticking out of it. That was like practical. And then the one that comes through his chest in front of them is digital.
Okay.
In the woods, Sawtooth, One Eye, and Three Finger all reconvene at Scott's body. Sawtooth and One Eye each grab a hand, dragging Scott across the forest floor as Three Finger scampers next to them. In the truck, Carly continues to sob, begging Jesse to take them back to Scott. As calmly as she can, Jesse tells her regretfully that they have to keep going. This only makes Carly cry harder, and Chris holds on to her, squeezing his eyes shut. He's like, man, I really fucked it up.
My leg is killing me. And my hand is, we got to do something about this.
I don't think that even comes into play again.
No.
His hand?
Oh, yeah.
It should.
It should.
For a doctor.
You know? As they continue forward, we pan up to the sky for a scenic shot of the never-ending trees and hills behind them.
Something interesting I did learn in the production notes, which you can't even tell, but because they filmed this at that park in Toronto, whenever we're panning up and seeing the height of the trees and everything, there is the city of Toronto behind these trees.
Oh.
Okay.
But it's all removed digitally.
Wow.
That's cool. When we come upon the truck again, day has turned to dusk. Jesse asks Chris if he's sure this is the road that was on the map, but he just supplies that it's got to go somewhere. It's like, no. Okay. Jesse just hopes that it will get them out of here, but their hopes are quickly dashed when they come up to a downed tree blocking the road ahead. And when Jesse tries to continue forward anyway, the wheels of the truck are revealed to be stuck in the mud. Chris tells her to reverse, and when she tries, it's no use. She shifts the truck into drive again, but Chris just gives up, certain that it's not going to move. So everyone gets out of the car, slamming the doors loudly behind them. This felt to me, you know, like when you're playing a game and you try to go somewhere and it's like, I don't need to go there right now.
Yeah.
It's like, no, you're stuck in the mud.
Yeah.
It pissed me off.
Put some branches or rocks or something, wedge it under there.
They're like, no,
get some traction.
we no longer have a vehicle.
Yeah.
It's just over. It's
on
just
foot
over.
from here.
Chris suggests that they need to find out where they are. And when Jesse points out the highest ridge, he hurries off in that direction. Jesse pulls Carly along, and although she's not crying anymore, she has completely given up. She questions what the point is if they're going to find them anyway. Jesse tries to coax her along, but Carly weakly protests that she's not going with Chris. He's the one that got them into this.
I was going to admonish her quite a bit, but honestly, well, he didn't lay the barbed wire.
No.
But he did crash into them pretty severely.
He did. And I felt like it was a joint effort.
Yeah.
Because him and her really wanted to go in the house.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So
That is true.
Let's not put
Yeah.
the full blame on him.
Really, Carly? Yeah, because I
Yeah.
remember one of us being very adamant that we needed a toilet.
That is
Yeah.
true, but they were already killing their friends.
Yeah,
No,
that's true.
yeah.
Jesse grabs Carly by the shoulders and tells her to listen. Scott died protecting them, and if they don't keep themselves alive, then it was all for nothing. This brings a fresh round of tears from Carly, but Jesse insists that they're all in this together. When Carly sobs that she just wants him back, Jesse hugs her. In the trees, Chris searches through twigs, but on the road, Jesse looks Carly directly in the eyes. She promises her that they're going to stay alive. They'll get out of the woods, they'll find the police, and they're going to make sure the motherfuckers are punished for this. I get what you're trying to do here.
Mm-hmm.
But Scott just did this to her and then got fucking killed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
true.
maybe we're going to get out of these woods. Like, we just did this.
She's like, and we're going to get married.
Yeah. They're going to elope.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, honestly, why not at this point?
Chris comes over, using a branch that he found as a cane. He holds his hand out to Carly, assuring her that she can do it and reminding her that it's going to get dark soon. Carly finally listens and stands, but as she goes, Chris whispers to Jesse that they need to find the road soon. It's like, yeah, fucking, yeah. She already knows. They leave the yellow tow truck behind. We pan down the length of trees as the trio makes their way through the woods. Chris leads them, lumbering and using the stick to aid him. Jesse and Carly follow behind, Jesse promising that it's just a little further. But when Chris sets his stick down, something metal snaps at it, and it's pulled away from him. A carefully hidden bear trap is pulled up into the trees, and it dangles from above, thankfully empty, but it could have been clamped down on any one of them. Carly bursts out laughing, her giggles echoing throughout the trees. And elsewhere, to the tune of a driving drum beat, Three Finger, One Eye, and Sawtooth perk up as they hear it.
I understand. She's gone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she honestly has every right to be after what she's witnessed.
Yeah.
But you're giving away our position.
Yeah.
But shut up.
Yeah.
Be gone quietly. Back with the group, Chris hurries along on the stick until he can take no more. He lies down on his back. Between pants, he tells Jesse that he needs to rest. Carly takes a seat against a tree, and Jesse gets on the ground next to Chris. But from her unique vantage point, Carly notices something and makes the other two aware of it. Jesse and Chris turn and realize that Carly is pointing at a watchtower. We see it, standing tall and defiant, but when Carly yells up to it asking if anyone is there, Jesse shushes her. I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah. Why the fuck would you do that?
The tree finger. That's a Radiohead song. Fuck it.
It's Littlefinger.
Yeah, I'm sorry. You know what? Honestly, forget what I was going to say. I was just going to say he might be up there and you know, you're giving away everything. But it's gone now. The whole
It's
point.
over.
It's done.
With renewed vigor, Chris rushes to it, pointing out that it can have a phone or a radio, or they might be able to see the road. He begins to climb the ladder on the side, having to hop to account for his wounded leg. Jesse begins to climb behind him and Carly behind her up the stomach-clenchingly high ladder and onto the watchtower.
All along the watchtower.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I did want to say that I read in the production notes, this is actually in a studio.
Oh, okay.
And this entire watchtower set was built. The trees around it are a constructed fake forest.
Mm-hmm.
The production designer, Alicia Kiwan, actually worked on Dead Ringers,
Okay.
What?
Tommy Boy, and Bride of Chucky.
Very nice.
Wow.
But in the production notes, they had talked about how the trees in the forest were made with such a material that they were easy to break and to maneuver so that they could arrange the lights that they needed and move the camera around.
Yeah.
And there are some cool camera moments coming up that we will see shortly.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing about it is this tower is actually legitimately 40 to 60 feet in the air.
What?
Oh my God.
Yeah. And so it's kind of wild because you would think that they would just build enough to fake it.
Yeah.
And the height wouldn't be legitimate, but it is actually pretty tall up.
Yeah, sometimes you just got to fake it, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And sometimes.
Yeah.
Chris pushes up through a trap door in the floor and helps Jesse and Carly up. The three of them stand in the window overlooking the forest. Carly states that she doesn't see any roads or towns at all, but Chris just hobbles away, warning the women to get away from the windows or they might be seen. He goes to a covered window instead and peeks out through a hole at the clouds blanketing the darkening sky. Carly shrugs, accepting the fact that they're gonna die, but Jesse just gets her away from the window with the request that she help her look around. Carly does, going through boxes on shelves and emptying an abandoned bag. Jessie searches too, and she's able to find a first aid kit. She calls Chris over to finally receive medical treatment. She pulls up his pant leg to reveal the gunshot wound, but it's getting darker by the second. Luckily, Carly has found some glow sticks. She cracks one, producing an orange light and tossing it over to Jesse before doing one for herself.
Maybe we don't waste all these glow sticks
No, crack them all.
immediately. Like, there's 4 more. You want me to crack?
Let's party.
They are fun to crack.
They are, but I mean,
We need
look,
a little enjoyment today.
it's been a rough day. It's been rough.
But using this new light, Jesse pours alcohol on Chris's gunshot wound. She clamps her hand over it, but he groans against the pain, and she watches him with sympathy as he wraps his leg. T brought up something very funny off mic. The fact that he's supposed to be a doctor.
Yeah. Just never talk about it again.
Yeah.
Doesn't come up again. And it's like not even, and you had said, what, a banker originally?
Yeah.
What's the difference between characters if he's a banker or he's a doctor?
Nothing.
Honestly.
Because you would think him being a doctor, that's going to come into play in a big way
Yeah.
later.
Right.
And it does not. Like, it's a missed opportunity.
I mean, we
Yeah.
learned about a mink.
Yeah, we did
Yeah.
learn, but he could have been a vet.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know.
I would think, honestly, what it would lead me towards is almost like maybe a Survivor type situation
Yeah.
Okay.
where this is so bad that maybe he has to amputate his leg.
Yeah.
And he's in medical school, he's a surgeon or whatever, and so he knows how to do it and what to do.
Right.
You know what else a doctor would be knowledgeable of? What human organs and body parts look like? Maybe like if they were in Tupperware in a fridge.
Oh, no.
Oh, yeah.
Just throwing that out there.
It would be better than that reaction.
Oh
Yeah.
no.
Oh, no.
He was upset they weren't stored properly.
Because that that could be a cool like parallel moment of him being like identifying that mink.
Yeah.
And he, seeing it and being like, we got to get the fuck out of here. And they're like,
Mhm.
what?
This ain't no mink.
Yeah, this ain't no mink. That's a pancreas. Or
Yeah. You picked the only organ we don't know on site.
He would because he's a doctor.
He's like, it's
Yeah.
a spleen.
Yeah. It is.
Sure.
Carly is still searching around the shelves and manages to find a radio. She alerts Chris and Jesse, who come over, but Chris mutters that it looks prehistoric. Jesse takes the microphone, and when Carly asks if she knows how to use it, she offers to try. She tries the switch, and the radio miraculously turns on. Chris advises her to not move anything, to just keep the frequency that it was already on. And I do, on one hand, understand this. On another hand, we don't know who they might be talking to, who these mountain men know, who's in
Right.
cahoots, who's not. I feel like keeping it on the same frequency, I'd be like, it's just like fucking three finger on the other. Like, I don't know.
But at the same time, I don't want you fucking with the levels like Millhouse in the car.
Yeah. No.
I mean,
We got to find a
That's a bit-
balance.
that's very fair too.
I would think, honestly, leave it where it's at and just try that. I mean,
All right. I guess. Jesse uses the microphone to call for help, pleading that they have an emergency. She asks if anyone can hear her. Chris has crept to the window and peers down into the dark woods below. Jesse continues to call for help, sharing that someone is injured. Chris still stares down into the woods, and suddenly, 3 people lit by the flames of their torches walk into view.
My first thought, they have torches.
Yeah.
We're in a building made of wood.
Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
That's all we need, right?
Yeah.
Because it seems like it takes a long time to reach
Yeah.
this conclusion.
Yeah. No.
Chris whispers for them to be quiet, get down, and turn off the lights. They do as they're told, Carly burying the glow sticks beneath that.
He's like, who cracked all these glow sticks?
It does look bright when we
It's
see it from out there.
crazy.
I'm like, there's no way that would be that bright.
It's like, while I was dressing his wound, were you cracking more glow sticks?
We gotta let off some steam.
Yeah.
We gotta take the edge off. But she buries them under towels.
Embarrassed.
Sawtooth, One Eye, and Three Finger continue by quietly, and Chris whispers that he thinks they're passing them. They are too, until suddenly the radio screams to life, squealing distortedly. The men below take notice of this immediately and start to look around.
I doubt they could hear that. It's so far away from them and so high up.
That's true, because we watched them climb forever.
Yeah.
But they're like, I think it's that watchtower. Immediately.
A voice comes through the radio informing that they're Ranger Base emergency and asking for their location. Chris and Jesse sit pensively, but Carly snatches up the microphone, declaring at full volume that she doesn't know their position, but please help. The voice on the other end asks Carly to repeat herself and give her position, but Chris slumps down. He warns them in a whisper that they're coming. And they are. We see the men climbing the ladder to the watchtower, led by Three Finger, who scales the rungs eagerly. Jesse takes the microphone, repeating that they don't know their position, but they're in a watchtower that must be north of Bear Mountain Road. As Chris searches frantically for something to defend themselves with, Jesse goes on to say that someone is trying to kill them. The voice on the other end says that he can't hear everything she's saying, but if she's in the watchtower, stay there. He asks if she copies, and Jesse says that she does, but begs that they hurry because it is an emergency. Chris calls Jesse over to help him overturn a desk to block the trap door, and Carly takes hold of the microphone. The ranger assures that they will come help, but Carly details that someone has been shot and their friends have been killed. It was odd to me that she just said our friends when her fiance was murdered in front of her. But
that is true. You would lead with that, I would think.
I would think.
Yeah.
The music grows frantic as Jesse and Chris continue to barricade the door. But finally, everything just stops. They sit as quietly as they can, listening to the approaching footsteps on the ladder. Suddenly, the trapdoor jerks, pushed open as far as it can go, which is limited by the makeshift barricade. But it opens enough for Three Finger to slip his filthy fingers through. Chris stomps down on the door, smashing his fingers and earning a scream from Three Finger. He grabs his branch cane, which I don't know how he got that up there because he wasn't climbing with it.
Oh, yeah.
But, you know, whatever. But he stands armed and ready for the next move. Jesse asks what they're supposed to do now, and Chris admits that he doesn't know, but he thinks they're going down. He's like,
What?
it's probably over.
You're our leader, dude? You're the guy?
I don't think they're going away.
Good Lord.
I had a guy, but now I don't. And you are not the guy. Dropping her voice to a whisper in the ensuing silence, Carly asks again on the radio if anyone can hear them. But the radio is jerked away from her when Three Fingers shrieks with laughter from below.
I don't get this at all.
The only thing I can think is if
It's
there's
haunted?
wires.
The Watchtower is also haunted?
If there's wires outside and he pulled them, I don't know.
But it does. It takes the whole thing.
It literally makes no sense. I don't know.
I rewatched that like a lot.
Yeah.
Have a shot of that outside.
Of him pulling it?
Or something. A hand reaching for something.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's just ghostly.
Smoke begins to rise, and Carly still asks, what are they doing?
Just like, all right, the
cooking
radio
us
didn't work.
dinner.
Yeah.
Chris realizes that they're on fire. The men are trying to burn them out. Chris and Jesse go to the windows, but Carly just grips her hair in panic. Angry flames begin to lick through the cracks in the trap door, and the smoke grows thicker. Carly picks up an abandoned suitcase, and Chris yells her name to stop her, but it's too late. She throws it, and it crashes through the glass window. Carly tries to get up on the ledge, but Chris grabs her. She yells at him to let go of her because she'd rather jump than burn to death. Chris looks down at the waiting trees below and realizes out loud that Carly is right. As Jesse restrains her, Chris breaks the news that they're gonna have to jump. He guesses that the branches are only a few feet down, but Jesse corrects that it's more like 20 feet. But Chris doesn't want to burn to death, and he doesn't want to be chopped up into pieces either. He volunteers to go first. He steps onto the ledge, and when Jesse calls his name and he doesn't respond, she grabs him. Chris turns toward her, and the two share a look before Jesse just averts her eyes without another word. I was like, what the hell was that?
Yeah, I don't know.
Bravely, Chris jumps, flinging himself toward the trees below, and just as he's predicted, he's caught by a thick branch. Chris motions for them to come down, but Jesse and Carly, the fire casting the room behind them in a dangerous orange, share a hug before Carly climbs up onto the ledge.
First of all, aim for the bushes.
Yes. Always.
I am completely flabbergasted that this worked.
I
Yeah.
I know.
that he survived and landed just fine.
It looks hilarious.
It does.
Why? I mean, I understand that conceivably branches could withstand this.
Right.
Right.
But jumping from this height onto this branch and the branch just being like, oh, and taking it, that's really funny to me.
I just think of the damage you would take yourself.
Your ribs.
No,
Yeah,
they're completely
you-
fine.
yeah.
Yeah.
To the sound of crackling fire and breaking glass, Carly jumps. She falls straight down and is also caught by branches, but perilously. As she slips between them, she cries out for Chris. He reaches his hand out to her and she grasps it. Somehow, he's able to guide her to the tree trunk where she can hold on securely.
Just let it go.
It's like a level on fucking Crash Bandicoot or something. It's like, oh, we're just in the trees now. We gotta just accept it. He looks up at Jessie, who realizes that it's her cue. I think it might have been here when Carly is trying to hang on and not fall, but Emmanuelle Shariki dislocated her shoulder
Oh, wow.
Damn.
hanging from the branches here. And she was like, what's interesting about dislocating your shoulder is it's just relief when you pop it back into place. So she said they popped it back and she went back to work the next day.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
I was like, it's a fucking trooper.
Yeah. One thing I will say is I really expected one of them to get impaled somehow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To see
something.
all three of them land safely was really surprising to me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and pretty funny because it's like, this is just like a fantasy movie now.
Yeah.
Like, it's hilarious. We live in the trees now. But Jessie jumps with a twist to the side, slipping through the thin branches and landing on her side hard on a more substantial one. She starts to roll off, but catches and pulls herself back up. She climbs over to Carly, who sits quietly beneath Chris. Chris asks if she's okay, but Jessie is only concerned with whether Chris thinks they saw them. He has to answer honestly that he doesn't know. They sit in silence for a moment before they're startled by an arrow landing home in the trunk of the tree.
To have the wherewithal to know exactly where they've landed,
Yeah.
to appear exactly on the proper level.
He's
is-
Robin Hood.
Sure.
It's something.
Something's going on.
Somehow, the three men are under the tree with their torches. Three Finger begins to scramble up, moving limber and quick. Chris whispers that they have to move, and he finds a way forward, moving slowly from branch to branch without alerting the men below. We pan down and see just how far up they are, their whereabouts obscured by layers of branches and leaves. Three Finger grunts as he continues to pull himself up, and although Jessie has followed Chris, Carly stays behind, flattening herself against the trunk where she'd been hiding. Jessie balances on a branch and jumps when an arrow embeds itself by her foot. Carly finally moves, inching forward on her own branch and nearly falling when another arrow is shot right next to her shoe. She cowers back to the trunk, and in a shaky whisper, she repeats to herself again and again that she can do this, but she doesn't see Three Finger rising behind her and brandishing an axe. Jessie makes her way to Chris, and they turn back to see the predicament that Carly is in. They both start to call out to her, but it's too late.
This is a moment that is so fucked up, I couldn't even believe it, and Chris is unforgivable from here on out. She screams, Jessie does, and he throws his hand over her mouth.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he did.
Because he's like, well, we don't all need to die. Like, this is your protagonist?
Yeah.
They already know you're up here.
No. Well, you can see him right there.
Yes! You're hiding poorly.
Yeah.
I just don't understand why he did that. It's so fucked up.
Yeah.
Don't warn her.
It's
Yeah, no, it's pretty fucked up. Three Finger axes Carly a question. He swings his axe, which lands right in Carly's mouth, bisecting her head. Chris covers Jessie's mouth as she sobs. We get an extreme close-up on Carly's eye once again as it dilates, and we hear the rest of her body fall away. All that's left is the top of her head, balancing on the tree trunk with the help of the embedded axe. Her body continues to tumble below until it lands motionless on the forest floor.
Now, this looked very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The effects work of the actual chop,
Yeah.
the visual of this body tumbling and hitting all of these branches. It was really good work.
No, I did enjoy this.
I watched a video on Stan Winston's website of Shane Mahan explaining the process of all of this. He said that the initial idea for this decapitation was they were going to do a full casting of Emmanuelle Chriqui's head and body. And they did. I saw footage of them casting her completely. They were going to do a mechanized head. The axe swing would trigger a mechanism in the head that would drop the body.
Oh, wow.
So the producers are like, that is 3 or 4 times what you can spend on this death. But we love it. Don't cut it. Just do it cheaper.
Okay.
All right.
So Shane Mahan said that they learned a trick from Terminator 2 called a whip pan. So you follow the axe, but it cuts away to the axe or a fake cutaway axe already in Emmanuelle Chriqui's mouth. So the way that you're following the axe, it looks like it makes contact, but the axe is just falling out of your view.
Yeah.
The axe is already in her mouth. So that took care of the artificial head. They got to actually use her head.
Okay.
That's great.
He said that they made a hollow tree, put her in it, and her head is sticking out of the tree. So because she doesn't have a body. They painted the bottom half of her face. They made a floppy body replica to drop. So her eye is real. The dilation is digital. They made a digital replica of the body to drop through digital trees.
Oh, wow.
And they said that it was a third of the cost of what they had planned to do before. And that this is the death that everybody remembers. This is the one that they were most excited to pull off, and that they were really proud of it. And I think that they should have been.
Yeah. It's fairly seamless.
Yeah.
And it all blends into the environment in a way that you don't even think about all the work that went into it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when you're doing things digitally, like, it is so easy. This could have looked like trash. But the mix of everything, they, to me, nailed it.
No, yeah, because a lot could go wrong doing it. You're doing it in the trees, and the body's got to fall and everything.
Yeah.
And it does. It looks really good.
Chris does his best to quiet Jesse's sobs as Three Finger pulls the axe from the tree and makes clicking noises, trying to zero in on their location. Chris implores her to come on, and she pulls herself together and follows him. But down below, Sawtooth and One Eye are calling up with hoarse voices in their strange language. Chris and Jesse continue to balance as they move along, and Jesse whispers that he's coming. Chris says that he knows, and he assures Jesse that he has a plan. Jesse slows, distracted by the men's hooting and cackling laughter, but Chris leads her further. Once they're stable, he pulls a heavy branch toward them. They're moving through these trees like it's nothing. Like they're walking on the ground.
Like you're in a studio and you don't have to worry about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I literally wrote, my only note for this section is a little too much balancing on branches going on for my taste.
It's so much.
It goes on for forever.
Yeah.
They're in these trees for so long. Straining, he asks Jesse if she can hold the branch. She goes, "Why?"
Chris is like, she's right here.
Yeah, no shit.
Chris tells her why. Because we're going to knock this fucker out of the tree. Jessie is game. She grabs onto the branch, but Chris warns her not to let go until he tells her to. She asks where he's going, and he tells her, which is pretty much the only plan any of them have had at all. He's going to make sure Three Finger comes this way. But Jessie counters that he can't move as quick as she can. She scrambles away, shimmying across the branches and ignoring Chris's protests.
I forgot he has a gunshot wound in his leg.
He does.
Yeah.
He does. Well, the way he's been fucking
Moving
tight
around.
roping these branches, you wouldn't think that he did. When she almost trips, she steadies herself and screams out that she's right here. She invites him to come and get her. When there's no sign of him, she asks in a hoarse and cracked voice where he is because she's right here. As soon as Three Finger lurches into view, Jessie hurries back toward Chris. She stops when she hears his laugh, but when she turns around, he is once again nowhere to be found. She looks confused, and we see Chris fighting for his life, continuing to hold onto this branch. I'm like, you expected Jessie to hold on to this?
Yeah.
He's like, he's fucking straining. There's veins. Out of nowhere, Three Finger drops down onto the branch next to Jessie. She falls onto her back onto a branch.
Yeah.
And creeps slowly backwards away from him. But he's having the time of his life. He pulls out his knife, making strange faces and slurping and clicking his tongue at her. But Chris screams out for him and lets loose the branch. Three Finger turns just in time to get slapped with it and flung off the tree. This is the most fucking
Looney Tunes.
Yes!
Yeah.
I'm just like, and also, dude, there's no way. I don't know enough about trees to even execute this plan. To know that it would even work, to say, well, this branch has the flexibility to.
It's literally like Three Finger ran off the tree and then realized he was floating in air and then Three Finger flies through the air cartoonishly and lands with a thud on the ground below. Jessie and Chris exchange a glance, and the drum beat starts up again as they carefully walk away. But below, Sawtooth and One Eye find their fallen third. They scream up to the sky with anger and frustration. Jessie and Chris have moved past the trees, finally, thank God, and they scale the rocks behind a waterfall. We hide with them behind the curtain of running water as they cling to each other, and we watch the flame of a torch moving through the trees. They back up from the water, disappearing into the darkness of a cave.
I appreciate that shot. It was very nice.
It was.
Did look cool.
In the cave, Jessie knots a new piece of fabric around Chris's knee. He offers her his condolences. He's sorry about her friends. Jessie shares that last Friday, she came home to a message on her machine from her boyfriend. He told her that they shouldn't be together anymore. She told Carly, and within 20 minutes, she had Scott, Evan, and Francine all blowing off work to take Jessie on this trip. Her voice cracks as she is overcome with emotion. She tells Chris that that's the kind of friends they were, and now they're dead.
I don't believe you.
But I'm like, okay, so finally we get
something.
And what Francine was saying earlier, next time she gets dumped or whatever.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Chris is like, so you're single? No, I'm just kidding.
I was like, God damn.
But he cradles her face in his hand and tells her sincerely that it's not her fault. Jessie lowers her head to his chest, and Chris holds her as she sobs. We cut to Jessie waking up in a new dawn, but the second she opens her eyes, she sees one of the men silhouetted against the waterfall behind him, swinging an axe. She gasps and sits up, alerting Chris that they're here. But after a look around, Chris realizes that they're not. Jessie was just dreaming, but Jessie just replies that she wishes. They leave their hideout and scoot along the wall behind the waterfall, and they help each other carefully descend the rocks below.
This shot from behind the waterfall, you realize how poorly hidden they were all night?
Yeah!
Yeah.
Like they're wide open. If they take a peek from a different angle, it's like, oh, they're both right there sleeping, of all things.
Yeah.
Well, let's go to bed. Both of us.
I thought they went in a cave.
I thought.
Yeah.
Well, honestly, it seems like what we learned from the cabin. We apparently have a truce when everyone's sleeping, so they're fine.
They're like, we're on base.
Yeah.
Back in the woods, they lean on each other for support as they go. Jessie asks Chris how his leg is, and he says that it hurts, but that's good, because if it didn't. But before he finishes his sentence, he sees that they've come upon a road. What was he going to say?
I don't know.
They're high up on a hill, but there is a road indeed beneath them. They come to a slope that will take them straight down to it. After a moment of reflection, Jesse asks how they're going to get Chris down there. But Chris is like, oh, I'll get down there. But he's interrupted. But he's interrupted again by an axe soaring through the air and planting itself in the tree right next to him. We're doing this too much.
Yes.
Where it's some projectile, arrow, axe, whatever, and it's landing right next to us. It's too much already. I'm done with that. Let's refrain. We see the thrower coming through the trees. It's Sawtooth, the quiver on his back still stocked with arrows. Chris falls, but jumps back up to his feet and pulls the axe loose. Things happen very quickly and in disorienting shots, but Chris goes up against Sawtooth and is promptly pushed down the hill.
He said he'd get down there.
Yeah.
As he rolls down, which looks really funny, Jessie is kidnapped. She screams for Chris as she is carried away through the trees. This was so fucking, it's just like, we gotta get her to the house.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Like, it happened so fast. It felt so cheap. Like, I was really annoyed by this. Chris is down the hill halfway, the ridge where he stood with Jessie above him and the road below him. He looks above and calls out for Jessie, only to get her departing screams as an answer. But below, a police car travels down the road. Chris slides down the rest of the way, stumbling into the road just as the car approaches and nearly getting hit. But the trooper, played by David Hubband, is able to stop. He gets out of his car, demanding to know if Chris is crazy. Chris just repeats that they've got to move, but the trooper tells him firmly to calm down. He asks if they're the ones that called from the fire tower. He's been looking all over for them. But Chris tells him to shut up and listen because people are dead. I was like, Chris, what are you doing?
Yeah.
The trooper is like, dead? What people?
Didn't he already know that though?
Yeah.
I know he said he couldn't hear some of it, but
Right.
she clearly said
She did say that.
many times.
To answer his question, the trooper is hit straight through the left eye with an arrow from above. Chris turns in time to see Sawtooth standing in the trees, lowering his bow. Similarly, the trooper lowers to the ground as his life slips away, and Chris thinks in a hurry, jumping behind the wheel of the police car. But he quickly finds that the keys are not in the ignition. He searches for them, but when he picks his head back up, the windshield cracks with the force of another incoming arrow. The arrow pierces the seat next to him where there is already an arrow embedded somehow. There's
Yeah.
This is the second take.
two. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. But Chris gets out of the car and rolls underneath it.
Now, I'm real quick. I wasn't interested because I was like, there's no way that arrow is going through a car windshield. I was like, there's just no way. Oh, no, they can.
Oh my
God damn.
God.
Yeah, I was like, I watched like 2 or 3 videos on people trying it, and one guy said that a compound bow or a crossbow. He goes, you can do it.
Good Lord.
I will say in games, if a bow and arrow or a crossbow is an option,
Oh, yeah.
I love it. It's so good.
You just feel cooler using it.
Yeah, and stealth.
Mm-hmm. And you can collect it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway. Peering from beneath the vehicle, Chris's eyes lock onto the trooper's gun, still snug in the holster at his hip. But Sawtooth's boots step into view as they walk steadily past the trooper. Chris watches with wide eyes, spotting the keys that the trooper dropped in the dirt next to his limp hand. Sawtooth stands over them before reaching down and picking them up with a deeply scarred hand. Sawtooth comes around to the driver's side of the car, but looks confused when he finds the vehicle empty. He looks around before relying on his nose, sniffing, the scent somehow leading him to lean down and look under the car. But there is no one there. Chris is gone. By the time Sawtooth stands back up, wheezing as he scans the area, Chris is watching safely from the trees. Bullshit. Bullshit. But Sawtooth picks up the trooper's body, opens the back door of the car, and throws him inside.
He is a puppet for most of that.
Don't be alarmed. He closes the back up and gets behind the wheel. Chris scurries through the trees, staying low as he hurries back onto the road. He rolls beneath the vehicle and lifts himself up so that he's flat against it. We pan through the car, over the trooper's lifeless body, and back outside of it, while Chris, channeling his inner Sideshow Bob, channeling his inner Max Cady, clings underneath as Sawtooth drives away. I was like, ain't no fucking way. There's no way this dude just did that.
Yes, he did. Hope I don't drive through some cactus.
Yeah, no shut up.
Back at the horrible house, smoke still streams from the chimney and Jessie screams, her voice cracking. She's tied to one of the beds with a gag in her mouth. One Eye comes over to her and strokes her face gently, but she sobs and recoils at his touch. Her voice barely above a whisper, she begs for his help. She apologizes and asks again if he can help, but One Eye remains silent. Instead of answering, he takes out a huge knife and hovers the blade over her face and neck. Jessie sobs, and the moment is mercifully broken when One Eye hears a vehicle approaching the property and his head jerks in that direction.
I want to know what about this course of events would lead you to believe that he would help you. I understand begging for him not to do something.
Well, the whisper is like, look, it's just you and me here.
Yeah. I know that he's telling you to do all this.
You can just let me go,
Yes,
dude.
you're the nice one. Come on.
It made me think of Tiny.
Yeah, but there's nothing about One Eye that seemed tiny at all.
No, not at all. Outside, Sawtooth drives the police car up to the house and gets out, wheezing. One Eye goes to the door as Jessie stays restrained to the bed, sobbing quietly and asking for help. Meanwhile, Chris lowers himself silently down to the dirt and watches as Sawtooth drops the trooper onto the ground. I was like, this is funny.
Yeah.
Like him riding the whole way.
Like you said, more cartoon.
Honestly.
Yeah. The trooper stares sightlessly through the bloody hole where his eye used to be, but Sawtooth quickly scoops him back up and drags him toward the house. One Eye comes to help him, and the two men grunt as they carry the trooper and drop him on the table. Chris pulls himself out from underneath the car and crawls to the back of it. He peeks out at the house. Still strapped to the bed, Jessie sobs and begs for help, but the men are about their work. Jessie watches in horror as One Eye brings down a cleaver on the trooper's neck again and again. When his head finally comes loose and rolls to the floor, she screams. And in their gibberish language, Sawtooth instructs One Eye to do something, pointing toward Jessie. He turns obediently and starts toward her with the knife in his hand again. And again, he brings it down to her throat as she cries for help.
I just find this moment of plot armor to be pretty ridiculous. Like, whenever they brought Francine here, they chopped her up immediately.
Oh, yeah.
Why are they keeping her to wait? Well, I want you both here before we start cutting into her.
Yeah, I have no idea. It makes no sense.
Because as soon as the cop's here, we start chopping him up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No shit.
And it's not like, but like you said with Francine, it's not even like they keep the women or something like that, because he killed her out at the fucking road.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know, dude.
And he cut Carly's head off immediately.
Yeah.
He did.
And they didn't even collect the body to eat her. That's
No.
just
that's
just
And
vicious.
that's another thing. And that's another thing. I know how it sounds when I say this, but I like cannibal movies.
Yeah.
Okay.
I am a little annoyed here that it is implied, but never, like, we don't see them eat Francine. We don't see them throwing body parts into the pot. Like, it's just like, it's in the fridge, so obviously we can put two and two together. But I feel like as horrific as they wanted this to be,
Yeah.
we could have gone a little bit further with that.
You have them stuck under the bed when they're taking Francine apart.
Yeah.
Why don't they have to be stuck under there while they're eating her?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
And I'm guessing that that's the implication of what happened.
But it's like
we missed all of that.
yeah.
See, to me, I thought they just put it away in the fridge.
They could have.
later.
Yeah, they could have. Well,
And
all
I'm like,
that
man,
killing,
I'm busy. I'm tired.
that killing's tired work.
Yeah, and they
dude.
take a couple naps.
Yeah, they need to be for real cannibals, right?
Yeah. Yes. But suddenly, the front door to the house erupts in flames. Confused, One Eye leaves Jesse to go investigate. He stands in the doorway, mesmerized by the fire, but he's run the fuck over when Chris drives the police vehicle through, crashing into the house.
Was he like, did Jesse do that with her mind?
He's like, what the?
Because she looks right as soon as it happens.
Yeah.
So I'm like, put two and two together.
Chris hops out of the car, but Sawtooth stands menacingly in the kitchen. Chris throws a Molotov cocktail at him, and that explodes, setting a panicked Sawtooth on fire.
Where and how?
He forgot he had him in his inventory.
Yeah,
It's like, it's these are the grenades.
Yeah.
I can only.
Yeah. You can only
I can only
pick up
equip
one.
one. He groans, and as he beats his arm trying to put the flames out, Chris hurries back to the car. He grabs a long wrench from the passenger seat and returns to Sawtooth. He swings at him and misses at first, but Sawtooth's retaliation is short-lived when Chris finally hits him with the wrench and drives it into his gut. Sawtooth collapses to the floor. Chris stares at him for a moment before rushing to Jesse. He takes the gag out of her mouth and promises her that everything is okay as he unties her. She thanks him. He uncoils the barbed wire from one of her wrists, but suddenly, Jesse screams his name. Sawtooth is back. He grabs Chris by the shoulders and throws him across the room, sending him crashing into the wall. Chris hits a counter and rolls to the floor, and while he's trying to pull himself back up to his feet, Sawtooth grabs an axe from the wall. He goes to Chris, forcing him back down onto the floor and bringing the axe down again and again, missing him each time. Jessie still has one hand restrained to the bed, but she spots the quiver of arrows mounted on the wall above her, and she tries to reach for it. But Chris is still dodging Sawtooth's attacks. He finds a shotgun propped up against the wall. He loads it and fires, but completely misses Sawtooth, only launching a scatter of holes into the ceiling. Sawtooth quickly knocks the shotgun out of his hand and onto the ground. Abandoning her reach for the quiver, Jessie prioritizes freeing her captive wrist from the barbed wire. She does this, wincing as she loosens the coil. But Sawtooth has grabbed onto Chris and jacked him up against the wall. He holds him there by his throat as Jessie finally gets loose and reaches for the arrows. Sawtooth holds Chris tight, strangling him against the wall. Veins pop out on his face, but before Sawtooth can deliver the finishing blow, we hear a squelching sound. He immediately drops Chris, who collapses onto the ground as Sawtooth turns, revealing an arrow buried in the back of his head. He falls to the ground, and we see Jessie behind him, still holding the bow in her hands.
I appreciate her confidence that she's like, oh, I've got this.
Yeah.
I think that's my toxic trait is I'm like, oh, I'm Laura Croft. Like literally I could pick this up for the first time ever and nail him right in the back of the head. But I would end up shooting myself probably.
The arrow breaks.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, what the hell do I do?
And Chris is just dead.
Yeah.
His head's crushed. I honestly, and JP and I were talking off mic, I thought that she was just going to stab him with it instead of sitting in that bed and lining up the shot.
Yeah,
and
no, I
everything.
did too.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I was like, oh, she's going to stab him. And then when he did fall, and I was like, so you waited the full last 3 seconds to line that up to shoot him.
You know what could have worked? And this is like, what do they call it? Like Monday quarterbacking or whatever?
Monday morning
Monday.
quarterback.
Money,
quarterback. They do make a lot of money.
They do.
This may just be money quarterbacking, but if when they came here before, if Carly was like, oh, Jess, look.
Because they saw them.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Like if arrows are like, or like archery is like her thing or something for this moment to pay off because.
Nay, that's character development.
Oh.
Yeah.
We're not doing that here.
Yeah.
That's not what we do here. Sorry,
Yeah,
sorry.
or even if we seen them camping earlier and that's what she was doing or
Yeah.
asking
Yeah.
for anything.
Why
Yeah.
not? Again, though.
No, yeah.
Asking for way too much. Chris struggles to catch his breath, but he limps over to Jessie and helps her untie her legs. That's when Three Finger comes out screaming, armed with a bat. I do love the idea of him seeing his brothers get run over, and I'm assuming brothers, by the way.
Yeah.
A Molotov cocktail thrown at them. They're caught on fire. They're shot in the head with an arrow, and he's just like waiting or like hiding.
He's got to pick his spots.
Yeah.
We gotta give Chris some respect for coming in the way that he did.
He
though.
did.
He did.
Because goddamn,
He's straight Leroy Jenkins. He's
No,
just
he-
like, yeah.
He did. But he brings the bat down on Chris and proceeds to beat the shit out of him on the ground. But Jessie has freed herself, and she picks up a flaming piece of wood. She brings it down hard on Three Finger's back, splitting it in half and stopping Three Finger long enough for Chris to crawl away. But Three Finger is now armed with knives.
just get past it.
See, he's an orc.
If Jesse could be Legolas, I mean,
No.
Yeah. She's like, in my bow. But Three Finger comes for Jessie, and although she swings at him with her stunted piece of wood, she misses every time. He giggles maniacally, moving closer and closer to her until he finally kicks her down, causing her to fall backwards. Lilting and groaning gibberish, Three Finger starts to move in on her, but Chris grabs a piece of chain and throws it around Three Finger's neck. He pulls the chain tight, choking him as Jessie scrambles to her feet. With a scream, she snatches up an axe and drives it into Three Finger's chest. The gibbering, the giggles, the groans, everything falls silent, and Chris drops him to the ground. He snatches the shotgun back up and points it at Three Finger, but he's lying motionless with his eyes closed as a pool of his blood spreads beneath him. But Jessie alerts him to Sawtooth, who is somehow still alive and trying to pull himself. It felt like, Dad, it's in there again.
it was through his head.
It was through his head. That's
Yeah.
what I don't understand. So there has to be also something supernatural happening here, because we talked about in that, or not talked about it all, but we saw in like the newspaper clippings in the intro part, some mountain man legend.
Mhm.
So it's like, what? I would just love more on this, because I understand that this is not your average dude, okay? But he did, an arrow went through his skull and into his brain.
Yeah.
He shouldn't be getting back up.
Mm-mm.
And it honestly seems like they're all taking this very well.
Very well.
Yeah.
Yes. Chris looks over at Three Finger, whose eyes are open now as he writhes beneath the axe in his chest. Something grabs Jessie's leg, causing her to fall, and she screams when she sees that it's One Eye still alive beneath the car that hit him. Chris stomps on his arm until he lets go of Jessie, and she stands. She and Chris back out of the burning house, their eyes glued to the three men who have somehow survived all of their attacks.
I get the backing out because it's like we are out of our
Yeah.
league.
Yeah, no.
They just want it more. And the more that I'm thinking about it, because we're talking about all these things that they're surviving. He's had an arrow through his skull and brain.
Yeah.
This dude has been run over by a car and burned with a Molotov cocktail.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I completely forget everything that's happening so much in this sequence, because there's a lot happening very quickly. But Three Finger fell from the top of the tree.
Okay, so when they showed back up at the house and we don't see him, I was like, oh, I guess he died.
Yeah.
I'm going to be honest. I completely forgot where he...
Him falling in the tree.
No, I forgot that he was even there.
Well,
Like, they get back and stuff is just happening. I was just, oh.
Well, who can blame you? They treat it like it didn't happen.
Yeah. And it honestly like feels like One Eye and Sawtooth featuring Three Finger, because he's out like doing his own thing sometimes. Because even when we were here before, he wasn't here.
That's true, yeah.
So I don't know. Maybe I don't know. But yeah, I did. Once they came back, I was like, where the hell is he? I assumed that the fall killed him.
Yeah.
And so it's going to be this thing of like picking them off. But then he comes out with a bat.
I don't know.
Because honestly, that would have made a lot more sense. And the way, dude, the way that One Eye and Sawtooth reacted, they were like, "Whoa!" Like screaming whenever Three Finger fell.
Yeah,
so they're like, "Our brother's dead."
Yeah, they did. But maybe like as they're going through, they're like, no, the audience is gonna want more of this little guy, and they brought him back. Maybe he was supposed to die there. I don't know.
The laughing is they want more laughing.
According to Schmidt, that was a big takeaway from the film was his laugh.
Okay.
I'm glad for everyone who enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I love that for you.
Three Finger pries at the axe in his chest. Sawtooth wheezes as he pulls himself to his feet, and one eye scoots out from underneath the car. Jesse tells Chris to shoot them, but he says that he only has one bullet left. He looks at the back of the police car where a red can of gas sits. He mutters weakly, "Come on, you motherfuckers, just die." He shoots the gas can and it explodes. He and Jesse fly out of frame, and it looked so hilarious.
It did.
It was also funny to me that he didn't line up the shot and fired from the hip. And you see it like the recoil, and then they fucking fly with the blast. It's just like, what is this?
I'm glad he at least shot that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I was
Fair.
like, oh, okay. But it is funny them flying away.
Mm-hmm.
That is.
It was hilarious. The house goes up in a blaze of destruction. Flaming debris rains down as black plumes billow in the sky. But the drum beats start again on Bear Mountain Road, where the yellow tow truck is flying at top speed. Wasn't it stuck?
Oh yeah, it was by the tree that was knocked down.
It sure was, but we're not thinking about that right now.
I didn't even think about it when I was watching it. At the gas station, the old man sits in the heat, his expression still blank and dazed as the truck approaches, kicking up dust in its haste. The old man's expression morphs into fear as he hurries inside the gas station and slides the door shut behind him.
So,
This was surprising to me.
Yeah.
the way that he had kind of quietly threatened Chris.
Yeah. Well, when
When he
he's
left?
like, you're the one that's going to need help or
Yeah,
whatever.
whatever he said. It seemed like we are in cahoots.
Yeah.
I am the Captain Spaulding to their Firefly
Yes.
family.
Okay.
But you're afraid of them too?
It was a little odd because it did strike me at that same moment. It's like, oh, so you don't like them either then?
Well, he like looked afraid.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's like, I need my more Pepto-Bismol.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why
his
he's
stomach-
using it. He's like fucking anxious, dude.
Now I feel kind of bad for him. I relate to this guy now. But when the truck stops at the pump, we see someone's feet as they hop out. One floats above the ground, its owner careful not to burden it with his full weight. It's Chris. He comes around the truck with his arm in a makeshift sling. The old man watches as he limps over to the side of the building and snatches the map from the wall. Chris returns to the truck and he and Jesse share a long, knowing look. She nods and turns the truck back the way they came. Triumphant music rises as we see them finally traveling down a paved road. It cuts to black and the credits roll. But hold on.
All right.
Because that night, another officer pulls up to the smoldering wreckage of the house. Using his flashlight, he sweeps the beam across the rubble. The red and blue lights pulse as he searches through the debris and unearths the trooper's headless body. He stares in horror as a figure creeps up behind him. He turns to see someone thin and misshapen, shadowed in the headlights of his car, holding an axe. The officer turns the beam of his flashlight to reveal Three Finger, staring down at him, his deformed mouth baring his yellowed and scarce teeth in a horrible grin, his eyes wide and deranged. Three Finger screams before bringing the axe down. It cuts to black, and we hear his unhinged giggling.
Looks like meat's back on the menu, boys.
Woo! The credits roll as Wish I May by Breaking Benjamin plays.
It is 2003. Aggressively so.
Yeah. Well, yes.
So, what did you guys think of Wrong Turn?
Well, I mean, there's cool stuff in the movie. In all honesty, I get it. I know I can see why people like the movie, and it is something that, again, for me, I do remember that I watched this, and I'm like, oh no, I did see that, but there isn't enough, and I guess I just didn't watch it enough for it to hold a place for me to be like, no, I'll forgive this and I'll forgive that, and I don't know where this movie took a wrong turn for me, but it did, and like we stayed on that road. I don't care about the characters. Everything just feels like we're just there to be somewhere. And I know we pointed it out a couple times, but them waiting for a cue for them to run or for them to react to something. Why are we seeing that? Like, I can understand maybe like there's a zoom on somebody's face and then they're like scared or they're surprised or something. No, we're just there waiting for them to react for the next thing to do. The hillbilly guys or the mountain men or whatever, the inbred people, I get it. You know what I mean? How it could be scary and being out in the mountains and they live out there and, you know, they're unaccounted for and whatever, but it's very weird. It doesn't, I don't, him laughing, I get it, but it does seem kind of silly. You know what I mean?
Maybe that's why he's laughing.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe this just didn't, it just didn't hit right for me or something. But yeah, I probably, I don't mean it in a mean way, but I probably wouldn't revisit this. Like, I'll be honest. Like, I probably, if I didn't, maybe in another 20 years, if somebody's like, hey, you remember that Wrong Turn movie or whatever?
Another 20
yeah.
Hey, he's done it before.
Hey, yeah, I'll just, yeah. It'll be another anniversary.
Got it.
No, I completely agree with you. And I think that it is one of those things, like I had mentioned at the beginning, the things that I wanted from this film, I can get in other films that I enjoy more.
Yeah.
You know, and so I just don't really see a real point. There was nothing here that I'm like, oh, I would love to see this again.
Mm-hmm.
Or I'd love to, you know, experience the tension of whatever. There's just not there. I think that that's probably my biggest problem with this film is that there for me, is no meat on the bones for me to sink my teeth into.
Yeah.
It is just, there is no real depth to it. And I understand, you know, you have a fun slasher film, but to me, it's not ridiculous enough to be fun. We had a lot of fun with it, but I think it was kind of in spite of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I think that I would love for just a little bit of character development,
Mm-hmm.
just a little bit of story about these mountain men. You tease a legend.
Yeah.
You use the word legend.
Yeah.
And for us, people who love lore like nothing else,
Yeah.
it's kind of wild that you say this and then it's just like, well, they're there. That's the story.
Yeah, that's them right there.
That's the lore.
Yeah, they're homeowners who just live in the woods. I don't know what more you want from me. But I mean, I completely understand the power of nostalgia.
Mm-hmm.
And I know there are a ton of films that the three of us love so much that we saw at such a young age that we would defend to like the end.
Yeah.
And to us, it's a 10. To someone, it's a 1.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's just really bothersome to me that you have so many elements of things that could work
Mm-hmm.
so well. The premise and the setup, if you lean more into the things that actually give it a bit of weight,
Yeah.
give us some cannibalism.
That.
Yeah.
Give us some characters that we can root for if you're not going to really make the villains much of anything, really.
Yeah.
You know, and so it's just like I see a lot of missteps here. They have, as JP has mentioned, they took a wrong turn.
Yeah.
In more ways than one.
Yes.
Yeah. They took a left. They should have went right.
Yes.
Yeah, clearly. No, I agree with both of y'all. I think that we're all kind of feeling and saying the same thing. My biggest knock against it really is that lack of depth for both sides, for the victims and the mountain men, you know?
Yeah. And for the cast you have.
Yeah.
It's that
Yeah.
at this time.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like the only one that is worth really caring about is Jeremy Sisto, and I think that was by design
Mm-hmm.
so that it would hurt when he dies, and then we don't put any stock or weight into anybody else, and these are the people that we're left with.
Yeah.
I think that Carly was flat out a waste of a character. I like, she did nothing but be aggravating, like even more and more as the film went on. I will say, I think that her death was really, really cool.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I think that Stan Winston, Shane Mahan, and co, I think they did a really great job realizing the things that they did. And even like, I saw some behind the scenes stuff with the Mountain Men. I think Three Fingers specifically, the actor holding out his hand with no makeup on it, holding out his hand with all the prosthetics. They did really remarkable work. But I will say, we don't really close up see a lot of them very much at all.
Not
Yeah.
really.
So it's like, I know that so much went into it. I get glimpses that so much went into it. But if you're going to tell this really like harrowing and dark and bleak story of these brothers that are out here, you have, for me, my taste and my opinion, you have to lean into that and kind of get your hands dirty with it. I don't want to see a pot of nondescript meat. I don't want to see, oh, Francine doesn't have a leg anymore. What are they doing with, like, if you're going to do it, do it.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah.
It feels weird to call for more cannibalism, but like you said, more cannibalism.
Yeah.
When you're approaching subject matter of cannibalism, of inbreeding, of this like family built on incest and just the most horrific and taboo, like, you can't be scared. You can't have both.
Yeah.
You could have just had some scary guys in the woods that just like to hurt people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you're dabbling in these waters, I feel like, you know, dive in.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I feel like, honestly, they leaned a little more in The Hills Have Eyes into almost like, what is it? Pathos?
Right.
I'm tired. When we kind of see that it was, for that group, a result of nuclear,
Yeah.
you know, and you're like, oh shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you start to think about that, and it does get a little deeper by virtue of that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But like you're saying, to introduce these themes and just be like, well, this is just who they are. This is what they do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's it. And also, you don't get to see any of it. Don't.
Yeah.
Oh, we're not going to show that.
Yeah.
It's like,
What's wrong with you?
what are we doing here?
And imagine that scene, the tension of them trying to leave after they had just witnessed them eating their friend.
Yeah.
And then maybe there is a reason why you're like, oh, that's probably why they aren't killing them, because they're fucking shaken up. Because what we see is just a couple of people chop off an arm and a leg and they're like, I'm fucking tired.
Yeah. And they go to bed.
take a
Go to
nap.
sleep,
Yeah,
And then
but-
like, now's our chance.
Really, they had the itis. But like,
Yeah.
Honestly, we would have. I want to know that.
it's just, you know, I don't. Nostalgia is a heavy influence on a lot of films. For us, I mean, we lean on that a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Where we're like, even watching it through this lens as an adult, I know it's not that great. I don't give a fuck. It's a 10. You know what I mean? There are still films like this. I had never seen, or I didn't remember, the House of Wax remake.
Right.
I had a fucking blast. I think that it leaned into the ridiculousness of what was going on.
Mm-hmm.
And so with a film like this, you're not leaning into the ridiculousness and the absurdity. You're wrestling or teasing some really, really heavy and fertile themes, and you're not leaning into that either. Like, it just feels like I said, this middle of the road, paint by numbers, go. How many times? Run, go. How many times did we hear that in this movie?
Yeah.
Like, it feels like, okay, now they're in the woods and they're running. Now they're in the trees and they're running. Now they're in the house and they're running. Like, it's just like, it feels like we're kind of maybe revving up to something that we never get. It's like a roller coaster where there is no drop. Like, it's
Yeah.
just a track. Like, we're on a train. It's not a roller
It's
coaster
not a
at all.
roller coaster at
actually.
all, dude. Hey, can we talk about how are they fucking running in these trees? Like, why is this going on for so long?
They were up there forever.
It does. It is little stuff like that does. I get that it's a movie and it's a horror movie or whatever, but it does take away from the magic.
Yeah.
Because again, there is a point when she falls on her back and it's clear that she's fallen on a box. It's not a branch, because that branch, you would have fell off.
Yeah.
You're not,
Yeah, that's dumb.
You're not. I've fallen out of many trees. I promise you, that branch is not.
That's so true.
Yeah, you're gonna roll off.
And she's fine.
Yeah, she just gets right back up and goes. And it is things like that. And Carly, again, we didn't care about that. So once Scott is gone, we're left with this group.
Yeah.
Ferryman is just, you know what I mean? I know that's not his name.
Yeah,
It's
but
Chris, but
it was once.
Yeah, it was once.
He's
yeah.
Ferryman.
But it is that that hurted a lot for me as well. It is just them not having any character, or the character that you do give us, they just seem very muted, or like, I don't even know if archetypes are the right word for the, like, it's like
it's tropes.
Yeah, you need to do this. That's it.
And not even fully tropes.
No,
like, you know what
no.
I mean? Like, I don't know.
And then the ending, right? So is he going to the job interview? Like, is that where they're headed?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
What happened?
Like, what
now?
even is going on with this?
Going to the chapel, and they're gonna get married. Clearly. But yeah, I don't know. It was disappointing in that context, because if you're just going to be a kind of bland and average slasher about them running through the woods and being chased and being picked off, just let it be that. I feel like you really led me to believe that it was going to be something with a little more, like you said, meat on the bones. No pun intended, you know? And it just wasn't. So it takes this middle of the road movie, in my opinion, and makes it worse than middle of the road, because it's like, damn, you had a pretty cool idea. You had a pretty cool premise, and you just left it like sitting in the barn, you know?
You left it on the kettle.
You left it on the kettle.
Or a stove, I believe. In a kettle.
In a kettle on the stove.
Yes. In the house that Jack built.
But I think that we can kind of slide into ratings. I would kind of just be repeating myself at this point, and so I will just do that briefly. Very, very excited to see this cast. Everybody that popped up, I was like, oh shit.
Yeah.
So early 2000s, so much fun to just even see them all in one film together.
Yeah.
We really did enjoy some aspects of Halloween 4, so I was excited to see what McElroy was gonna give us. Stan Winston.
Yeah.
I don't think I need to say anything more than that. There was real potential here, and not realizing that potential is just it left me feeling disappointed.
Yeah.
There were some cool effects. I think the prosthetics are really honestly pretty fucking incredible. I read that a lot of them did a lot of their own stunts, which is really cool.
Yeah.
I just wish that I cared more about Anybody But Scott. I would have loved to explore any semblance of lore, of legend, of how are these men here? What did you come from? And even if that is a clunky fucking them stumbling upon some photo albums or anything.
But that's the other thing, is the credits of the film start at 77 minutes. So we have time.
We have so much time.
It's not like they're like, oh, we need to trim. No, we don't.
Yeah.
Let's figure that out.
Yeah.
I think that we are kind of encouraged to call upon Texas Chainsaw Massacre, upon Hills Have Eyes, and it's just not at the same table. Even in terms of homage of whatever. I want more. I want more cannibalism.
Yeah.
I want more story of this inbred fucking family, these brothers. Where are the rest of y'all? Like, I don't know.
It's just 3?
It's just 3.
Did you eat the rest?
I don't know.
Yeah. Well, maybe not. Yeah.
Maybe they don't eat anybody at all. But yeah, I said I wasn't going to repeat myself, and I am. But very, to me, middle of the road, early 2000s slasher with a really cool cast. But when you are middle of the road and you're kind of pretending to not be, you got to be called to the carpet. You got to be penalized for it. So on a scale from 1 to 10, Murderous Mountain Men, I am going to give Wrong Turn 4 out of 10 Murderous Mountain Men. I'm just, I'm not even mad. I'm just disappointed. And I will now open up the floor to you.
I think it is. We are just saying the same thing, and it is muted. It does feel like all the components are there. And listening to you, thinking about it, I don't know if this is the right thing, the right example to give, because the cast is great. The people involved are, you know what I mean, do good stuff. You're like, I don't understand. It almost feels like, and maybe if not, help me, work this a little bit. It feels like the Kids Bop version of the real song, but it's decent.
I get what you're saying.
There's just something
Yeah,
missing.
it's like, okay, that's not too bad, but would I prefer that over an original, The Hills Have Eyes or something, or Leatherface? No, of course not. But I get it. Hey, kudos to you. You made that. The song it sounds decent, but I prefer these.
Yes.
You know what I mean? I prefer something else.
Mm-hmm.
Again, there is cool kills, there is cool stuff, but when only one side person is your heart and then they're gone, and even that, it was just a likable. It was like, no, that guy's okay. He's all right. He doesn't belong there. And then everybody else is just kind of like rude or whatever. And then it's like, oh, all right.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of the sting out of once he's gone, it's just like, oh,
honestly, you kind of think about it, and maybe it is just a matter of comparison. Like, if you get kicked in the balls 4 times, a handshake will feel like a kiss.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're like, actually, it wasn't that great.
Yeah, that wasn't too bad. But it is just kind of like that. I think it is muted in some of the things where it could have been a little louder. The cannibalism, we really don't see them consume anyone or anything. We do see them stir the pot, and we do see them cut people up, but nobody's actually eating anyone. And I guess if we have seen movies like Texas Chainsaw and all that before, we're just supposed to come to the conclusion, come to that ourselves.
It's that I feel like there are, like, its predecessors are forced to do some heavy lifting here.
Well, that's what
it's like you can't do that.
Yeah. What if I haven't then?
Yeah.
I'm just out of luck? That's crazy.
Yeah.
But all that to say, for me, on a scale from 1 to 10 murderous mountain men, I'm going to give it a 0.5 only because I watched it when I was younger. So a 4.5.
Okay.
I did see it when, like I said, when I was younger, and I do know that I watched it a couple times. Other than that, yeah, I was just confused. It wasn't a lot for me to be like, yeah, I'll watch that again.
I would have loved to have watched it at a certain age to have that added bit of affection for it.
Yeah.
But having not, it's just like, okay. And I get exactly what you mean by middle of the road, because I just want to care more. I do not care.
Yeah.
And it's upsetting because you want to care, but I don't. And so, I will say one thing I did appreciate. I think that some of the production design was pretty good. When you think about that cabin and having been completely built for the production and the interiors, I forgot to mention that earlier. They filled out that entire thing.
Damn.
Yeah, that it is scary and cool.
Yeah, stuff like that, it really intrigues me, because you're like, all these little elements you see, somebody had to think of that, somebody had to make it, somebody had to put it there.
Yeah.
And that's cool. But, outside of that, for me, there's so much else that I would like to spend my 77 minutes.
Mm-hmm. In line waiting behind that semi, like we should have been.
Yes,
dude. He was so fucking impatient when you think about it.
No, he was there for about 2 seconds.
Yeah. He's like, this is ridiculous.
Right, children play here. It's like, no, you're in the middle of nowhere.
No. Get back in your car.
Yeah.
And the guy's like, brush your long hair. Yeah. It's like, what the fuck are you talking about? It's shorter than yours. It would be repeating more and more. When you are playing with such rich themes that could lead to such intriguing places, it's just a shame that you don't dive in really at all.
Yeah.
But maybe that's just not what this film was meant to be. Maybe it was just this fun film Friday night, watch it, enjoy it, and then don't think about it.
Yeah.
Which there's a place for that.
For sure.
But for me, out of 10 murderous mountain men, I am going to give Wrong Turn a 3.
Ooh.
Okay.
For each of those murderous mountain men.
For 3 fingers?
For 3 finger.
Yeah.
Well, that's all from us at Podmortem. What would you rate Wrong Turn and what should we watch next? Let us know on Instagram at the Podmortem. Be sure to follow us on Twitter and like our Stairhole Productions page on Facebook. Be sure to follow each of us on Instagram at Blood and Smoke, at JuggaloDaddy84, and at TravisMWH. Thanks again to Original Cinematic for sponsoring this week's episode. Please consider pledging to our Patreon, where you'll get bonus content, our monthly schedule, access to our Discord server, and the opportunity to help us decide which films to cover. And remember, there are many forks on the road of life. Even in desperation, we must train our eyes to notice which route is dotted with red flags. Until next time. Thank you for staying tuned for a special thank you to our Wendigo Getter patrons.
Woo! Yeah.
Very good. A special thank you to
Chris Ontiveros, Kristen Lofton, Megan Martinez, Kimberly Bass, Sophie Hodson, Anthony Jerome M., Jordan Nash, Kent Morton, Lala Thomas, Travis Anissa Hunter, Miguel Myers ATX, Jennifer Perez, Allison O'Neill, Carissa, TJ and Angie Bronson, Gabrielle Trevino, Spooky Mom, Applin Ontiveros, Karima Rhodes, Antonio Huerta, Kimberly Kleindienst, Will Brown, Sydney Smith, Osvaldo Soto, Bobby Holmes, Donna Eason, JD Rezak, Molly Gerhard, Armand Spasto, Aaron Nagari, Eggy, William Berry, Brittany Seaman, Charity Oxner, Amanda Six, Mandy Rainwater, Eden, Jordan Roberts, Dylan, Liz Heath, Spencer Montavo, Pancake the Panda, John Ramos, Michael Nuding, Alexis Roberts, Dan Laveau, Itzy M., Gary Horton, Leisha Olivier, Kate Lamp, Carlos and Sydney, Jessica Hunter, Helena Rudder, Alan Johnston, Mariah, Livy Fun, Scott Troutman Wise, Towton Watson, Mozzie Bear, Brittany G., Dave Burke, Adrian Stakes, Daniel McGinnis, Emma Hagel-Kissinger, Valerie G., Emiliana, Brian Glass, CB, Taylor Santana, Will Lewison, Angelique, Smelly Poo Poo Head, Beth Bauer, Cookie, Esperanza J., Jason Kyle OKC, Joshua Rumley, Danielle Peralta, Brandon, Sawyer Reese Farr,
Sahara, Girl That's Scary, Cassandra, Andrea Simmons, Ashley Higuera, William and Xxena Rush, Ryan Brom, Megan Ochoa, Laura Lassiter, Eileen O., Marissa E., Sydney, Henry F., Megan M., Strangely Sarah, Christy Beck, Nancy and Andy, Amanda Lopez, Andy Terrell, Jason Hanovan, Katie K., Erica Morin, Cameron S., Nicole Stewart, Trist Wynn, K.87, Mariah Jensen, Carrie A., Lonnie Lono, Powell, Kayla E., Maggie H., Murder Stina, Kevin McGonigal, Kristen Marcy, Ori81 Barikwa, Look Like That One Girl, Bog Boy, Felnez63, Alita Pui, Probably My Jugs, Kate Thackeray, Wade Pack, A Lizard, Bay J., Jay Rich, Jen Lassiter, Topher Williams, Elena Metler, Jean Jacket, Valerie K., Christy Lee Kruger, Professor of Humanities Laura McCarricker, Naomi, Josh Smith, Autumn Green, Abby Kopp, Crystal 831, Skank Sinatra, Morgan Alexander, Tony Osteen, Julie Fredborg, Rihanna S., Daniel Taylor, Anna Kate, Heather Ortiz, Jen T., Kim H., August, Vengeance Spirit,
Sam J. Green, Jenny May, Glittery Fab, Malik Caselli Armstrong, Scarly D., Toya Shea, Katie, Martin Shaw, Star, Tyler J., Daniel Dickerson, Jordan Gaddis, Cam Davies, Patrick Hoagland, Raven, D., Wesley Tart, Kristen Jackson, Jacob Nordberg, Spencer, Samantha, Damian Grant, Half Price Horror, Clemmy, Nisi Nay, Erica, Jason X Rules, Karen Burrows, 203 Duncan, Aaron Norman, Stephen Rogers, Victoria Smith, Corey Gillen, Patricia A. Graham, Erasmo Peña, Danielle Wright, Tabitha Thomas, Connie Lingus, Becca Boo, Richard Murray, Irene, Sally Slater 52, Jordan McCarthy, Christy Michelle Wilson, Rosalind Harnias, Emily Rance, Amy, Lisa and Kathy, Mike H., Karen with the Y, Christian Sadler, Hannah, Sarah Jack, Casey L., Evelyn Knight, Paula Garcia, Nikki M., Ghastly Grandad, Megan and Alexandra Saldivar, Lisa Sykes, Sunny Jonas, Carrie Ahern, Kelsey Niemeyer Cook, Martina LaForce, and Robin. Thank you all so much.
Yes, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate you all.
We really do, and we love you so much, we could just eat you up.
Ah.
Yeah.
Like we didn't see.
Like we more cannibalism. Until next time.